Chapter 576. When everyone saw the Azura expert sitting cross-legged in meditation, they were all astonished. Their faces gradually turned serious. Xiaoling Yu had already kept the saint weapon in his storage ring, but he kept glancing at Qi Hongxian from time to time. Qi Hongxian seemed to feel Xiaoling Yu's gaze, so he looked over and smiled. Less than 20 breaths of time had passed since everyone had gathered here. The fiendish qi that had been entangling everyone rushed over from all directions with countless ordinary fiendish qi. They surrounded the powerhouses of Duhu City and the Azura powerhouse in circles, but they didn't dare to attack them rashly. "I didn't expect that the two of you would be able to make it here safely," Divine King Madam said to Xiaoling Yu and Miss Jing with a smile. "We were just lucky," Xiaoling Yu said calmly. "Where are the others?" Guan Wei asked. "They went back the way they came," Xiaoling Yu replied. "That's good." Guan Wei heaved a sigh of relief. He was the one in charge of the operation in Evil Wind Valley. If the Qi family Sir Gods suffered too many casualties, it would be difficult for him to explain himself. "Kill them all." Suddenly, the Azura expert opened his eyes again and let out a thunderous roar. Roar. Countless fiendish beings roared in unison, and then charged at them with ferocious expressions. "The two of you, be careful," Divine King Madam reminded them, and then charged at a fiendish Divine King who was charging at them. The fiendish Divine King who was charging a Divine King Madam was the same late-stage Divine King fiendish being with a crocodile's head and a tiger's lower body. Divine King Madam could barely hold him back, so she had no time to take care of Xiaoling Yu and the others. Guan Wei didn't help his mother, as self-preservation was the most important thing for him. Xiaoling Yu didn't dare to use the Divine King stage divine weapons in front of so many strong cultivators of Duhu City. However, he had to release the primal true fire so that the ordinary evil spirits wouldn't dare to get close to him. That way, he could reduce the pressure on the three of them. Miss Jing's expression wasn't serious. She just frowned and stared at the white halo above the Azura expert's head. There were 20 godly king stage fiendish qi practitioners around them, but there were only 8 godly king stage fiendish qi practitioners from Duhu City. Although some godly kings could deal with 3 fiendish qi practitioners of the same level, there were still 3 fiendish qi practitioners that needed godly monarchs to deal with. One of the fiendish qi practitioners charged towards Xiaoling Yu and the others. Perhaps it was because Xiaoling Yu and the other two were not surrounded by any fiendish spirits, or perhaps it was because the primal chaos primordial flame was too conspicuous that God King fiendish spirit rushed over. However, it stopped when it got close. It roared angrily at the 3 people who were surrounded by the primal chaos primordial flame, but it did not dare to rush over for a moment. Guan Wei's expression was a little suspicious. This was the first time he had seen a Sir God stage human cultivator release such a powerful primordial flame. He couldn't help but doubt Xiaoling Yu's true cultivation. He also doubted Xiaoling Yu's intentions for coming to the wildfire. However, Guan Wei didn't say anything right now. He opened his fan and stared at the God King fiendish qi practitioner through the primal chaos primordial flame. After a few breaths, the fiendish qi practitioner spat out a sword of light condensed from fiendish qi. The fiendish qi practitioner's sword of light pierced through the primal chaos primordial flame. The fiendish qi practitioner's sword of light crackled as it collided with the primal chaos primordial flame. The fiendish qi practitioner was only an early-stage godly king. It was much weaker than ordinary early-stage godly kings. Although its fiendish qi practitioner's sword of light could pierce through the primal chaos primordial flame, it was scattered by the streams of light shot out from Guan Wei's fan. Roar! The fiendish qi practitioner became furious after failing to do anything to Xiaoling Yu and the others after shooting out a few fiendish qi practitioners. It endured its fear of the primal chaos primordial flame and swung its hand over viciously. The hand was like a thick red cloud. It possessed a ring of brownish-red light. Before it had even landed, most of the primal chaos primordial flame had already been extinguished. Guan Wei bellowed. More than a dozen streams of light shot out from his folding fan, suddenly gathered together, forming a cone-shaped stream of light that pierced towards the center of the palm. After all, it was an attack from a supreme-grade divine artifact. The fiendish God King's giant palm immediately stopped above everyone's heads after being pierced by the sharp awl. The brownish-red radiance surrounding the giant palm immediately receded, but the flowing light also dissipated instantly. However, the cone of light still managed to buy Xiaoling Yu quite a lot of time. Afterwards, he sent the primal chaos eel he had just completed towards the top of his head. Boom! The primal chaos eel exploded at the spot where the cone of light had dispersed. The giant hand was already in pain. Now that it was struck by the primal chaos seal, it immediately retracted upwards. This time, not only did it not gain any advantage in its angry attack, it even suffered a small loss. This made the fiendish God King even more irritable. It stretched out both of its arms and swept them towards Xiaoling Yu and the others from both sides. Xiaoling Yu and Guan Yiwei could easily block the attack of one of the fiendish God King's arms if they worked together. However, at this moment, the fiendish God King's two arms were attacking them. The two of them could only take one of the arms head-on. Guan Yiwei had a supreme quality god artifact. It was not difficult for him to take on one of the arms. However, if Xiaoling Yu wanted to deal with the God King's attack, he would have to rely on a saint artifact. A saint artifact could not be used. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu did not have much time to think of a countermeasure. Looking at the seemingly illusory but extremely powerful arm, he swung his silver moon broken blade towards it. As he swung his blade, Xiaoling Yu's power poured into the silver moon broken blade. The silver moon broken blade emitted a blade light that was about 10 feet long. The blade light struck the arm first. However, it only caused the arm to sink a little. It could not cut into it all. However, the silver moon broken blade's attack also landed on the arm. It easily cut a wound that was half a foot deep. The fiendish God King's body did not have any blood. Even with such a terrifying wound, there was no blood spurting out. However, the fiendish God King could not help but let out a cry of pain. However, the arm did not stop moving. The entire arm swept viciously towards Xiaoling Yu's body. Xiaoling Yu only felt a huge force coming from the front. His entire body flew out like a cannonball. The huge force kept hitting his body. Xiaoling Yu felt his tendons and meridians swelling painfully. Fortunately, he had a body that was comparable to a high-grade divine artifact. He could withstand such a blow. Forcefully suppressing his surging blood, Xiaoling Yu flew back 100 feet before stabilizing his body. At this moment, Guan Yiwei had also blocked the attack from the other arm. Miss Jing was standing behind Guan Yiwei, safe and sound. The second attack did not gain much. Furthermore, it also suffered a little. The fiendish God King roared and pounded his chest with his arms. Xiaoling Yu quickly flew to Guan Yiwei and Miss Jing's side. They formed an alliance. Miss Jing waved her hand and shot out 2 rays of white light. The holy white light landed on Xiaoling Yu's body. His surging blood immediately calmed down. His body also recovered to its peak state. Guan Yiwei was the same. He was originally a little tired, but now he was a lot more spirited. The fiendish God King did not give up just because of the 2 failed attacks. He waved his 2 arms and continued to attack Xiaoling Yu and the others. Xiaoling Yu and Guan Yiwei blocked 1 arm each. The result was the same as before. Neither side could do anything to the other. After the first clash, the 2 of them could rely on Miss Jing's holy white light to quickly recover. The fiendish God King, on the other hand, could not recover so quickly. If this continued, the fiendish God King would be tortured to death by Xiaoling Yu and the others if he did not retreat. Apart from Xiaoling Yu and the others who were fighting fiercely, the other Duhu City experts were not idle. The other Divine Lord cultivators were not as strong as Xiaoling Yu and Guan Yiwei, who could block the fiendish God King's attacks. The few batches of Duhu City Divine Lord cultivators who faced the fiendish God King could only flee in all directions. The slightest bit of carelessness would result in death on the spot. Fortunately, The Duhu City Divine Lord cultivators had extraordinary means. After stabilizing the situation, they began to counterattack and kill their opponents. Not every Duhu City Divine Lord could easily face the fiendish God King. The Duhu City Divine Lords who were attacked by multiple or high-level fiendish God Kings were barely able to defend themselves. Under these circumstances, although the Duhu City Divine Lords usually fought openly and secretly, they had no choice but to unite. Otherwise, they would all be in danger. Therefore, the Duhu City Divine Lords who had already killed their opponents did not choose to sit back and watch. They adjusted themselves slightly and helped the other Duhu City experts. For example, the city guard commander of Duhu City went to help the Divine Lord of Guan Yi Wei after dealing with his opponent. The fiendish God Kings here seemed powerful, but they did not have divine treasures to protect them. They also did not know how to take pills. Their advantage in numbers was gradually wiped out, and they could only stretch out their necks and wait to be slaughtered. Humph! The Azura, sitting cross-legged, snorted coldly and said again, "Since you are so useless, what use do I have for you?" After saying that, the Azura's lips moved, and he chanted out a mouthful of awkward syllables. What surprised everyone was that, along with the sound of these syllables, the transparent bodies of the fiendish creatures actually exploded into clouds of brownish-red mist. In just a few moments, all the fiendish God Kings, including the fiendish God Kings, turned into fiendish chi. The Azura stopped chanting and opened his mouth, releasing a powerful suction force that sucked the surrounding fiendish chi into his stomach. This scene was truly a little too shocking in everyone's eyes. At that time, several God Kings from Duhu City turned around and fled. If you don't want to leave, then all of you can stay. Chapter 577. As soon as the Azura finished speaking, 2 more God Kings from Duhu City turned and fled in fear. The Azura expert didn't stop them and allowed the 2 God Kings to escape. After he finished speaking, he stared at the remaining experts of Duhu City who hadn't left. Anyone could see that the Azura was terrifyingly strong, but the more meticulous could also sense that he wasn't in a good state. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent those ordinary fiends to deal with them. He could have gone out himself and killed the invading Duhu City experts one by one. There was no need to wait for them to gather here. Moreover, the fact that this Azura expert had allowed them to escape so easily was a very suspicious point. Azura was a bloodthirsty and murderous race. If other cultivators disturbed their cultivation, they would never easily give up on the cultivators who disturbed them. The experts of Duhu City who were still here all believed that this Azura was either immobile or severely limited in strength. "I'm only here to cultivate. I don't want to get involved in any disputes. Leave and don't come here again. I can overlook your reckless intrusion this time." The Azura didn't get up as he spoke, but his expression was full of confidence. However, his words made everyone even more certain of their thoughts. "What? Still not leaving?" The Azura narrowed his eyes, his expression full of anger and killing intent, just like before. There weren't many Duhu City cultivators left. Including Shaoling Yu's group, there were less than 10. What made Shaoling Yu curious was that the Qi family's sloppy God King had stayed behind. It was understandable, but Qi Hongxian hadn't left either. "It seems that you won't give up until I teach you a lesson." The Azura powerhouse suddenly raised his arm and pointed a finger at one of the Duhu City powerhouses. Immediately, a fiendish sword of light shot out. The expert from Duhu City who was attacked was a God King. When he sensed the power of the baleful sword light and realized that he had been locked onto, his expression changed drastically. However, he did not panic. He immediately swung his supreme quality divine blade to meet the baleful sword light. Boom! The moment the extreme gray divine blade and the baleful light sword came into contact, the baleful light sword suddenly exploded, and an incomparably ferocious shockwave immediately swept out in all directions. After the baleful sword light exploded, the God King spat out a mouthful of blood while holding his supreme quality divine blade. He was actually sent flying by the shockwave. The Azura seemed to have casually sent out a fiendish sword of light, but it was enough to render a God King powerhouse powerless. This level of attack made everyone reconsider the situation. After the Divine King who had been attacked stabilized his body with a pale face, the Azura expert said coldly, "If you still want to die, I don't mind helping you." These words are like a rope that tightly wrapped around everyone's necks. They felt suffocated. For a moment, no one dared to look directly at the Azura. Miss Jing, who had been staring at the white halo above the Azura expert, transmitted her voice to Shaoling Yu. When he attacked just now, the baleful sword light just shot out, and the white halo above his head spun a bit faster. The white light around him also became a lot thicker. If you look closely, you'll notice that his expression clearly had some strange fluctuations at that moment. Shaoling Yu nodded secretly and replied, "If he's not trapped by the white halo, then he's under an extremely great restriction. The white halo should have prevented him from moving much. However, this is just a guess. It's really hard to say what the truth is. His true cultivation should have already surpassed the God King realm." Before Miss Jing could reply, the housekeeper, a God King, whispered, "If he isn't a God Emperor stage Azura, then he's at least a late God King stage Azura." Guani Wei, who had always been cautious, said, "There are no treasures here that we urgently need. We shouldn't continue taking risks here." However, the God King lady shook her head and said, "The two pearls above his head and the huge fiend crystal below him are all extremely rare treasures. Even if we have no use for them, if we sell them, we will definitely gain a lot." Miss Jing continued to transmit her voice to Shaoling Yu. "If I'm not wrong, those two pearls are quite useful to my bracelet. They'll be of great use to Brother Shao as well." Shaoling Yu frowned and remained silent. Not far away, Qi Hongxian transmitted his voice to the sloppy God King of the Qi clan. "Ancestor, that fiend crystal will be of great help to me. If I can obtain it, I'm confident that I can cultivate to the God King realm within 10,000 years." Although the sloppy God King had a strange personality, it didn't mean that he wasn't intelligent. He knew very well what it meant for the Qi clan to have another God King expert. He also knew what it meant to have a treasure that could raise a cultivator who wasn't even a divine monarch to the God King realm. Originally, the sloppy God King didn't like to compete with others for treasures, but he was clearly moved by Qi Hongshuan's words. "Since you're all tired of living, I don't mind sending you on your way." The Azura expert seemed to have lost all patience. After speaking, he pointed his finger at the surrounding experts of Duhu City. This time, a total of 8 fiendish sword lights whizzed out. Almost every expert of Duhu City had to face one of the sword lights. Most importantly, the Azura expert cultivation was much higher than anyone else's. This allowed his attacks to lock onto them. They had no choice but to face it head-on. Even a God King would find it difficult to block the fiendish sword lights, so Shaoling Yu naturally didn't dare to be careless. He first struck out with a primal chaos seal, then transformed the primordial chaos fire into a fire dragon that swept forward. Following that, he had the Silver Moon Broken Blade release a 3-meter-long saber light in front of him. At a time like this, Shaoling Yu couldn't divert his attention to help Miss Jing. Before he'd entered, he'd made an agreement with Miss Jing that if he encountered too much danger, he would first consider self-preservation. Miss Jing had also said that she wouldn't be a burden to Shaoling Yu. The primal chaos seal's attack only weakened the fiendish sword lights by 30%. After the fiendish sword lights pierced through the primordial chaos fire's obstruction, they still had half of their original power left. The fiendish sword lights that shot towards Shaoling Yu destroyed the Silver Moon Broken Blade saber light and used 30% of their original power on Shaoling Yu. Shaoling Yu was sent flying far away. Fortunately, his various methods had greatly weakened the fiendish sword light's attack. His high-grade divine artifact body was able to withstand it. If the fiendish sword lights had struck him, even he would have died on the spot. Although the Azura's strength was greatly restricted, he still had the ability to casually kill cultivators below the God King stage. Just as Shaoling Yu was sent flying, he looked towards Miss Jing and saw that she was surrounded by a ring of rainbow light. The fiendish sword lights pierced through the rainbow light and dragged Miss Jing along with it. Miss Jing was indeed able to protect herself. The fiendish sword lights had almost injured Shaolin Yu, but she'd easily blocked them with a ring of rainbow light. After stabilizing himself, Shaolin Yu looked towards Qi Hongxian again. However, all he saw was a cloud of black mist slowly devouring the fiendish sword lights. After the fiendish sword lights completely disappeared, the cloud of black mist gradually dissipated, revealing Qi Hongxuan's pale face. He actually managed to withstand the fiendish sword light's attack. Shaolin Yu was in disbelief. However, he then recalled the last time he'd met Qi Hongxian by the river outside of whose city and understood. Qi Hongxian must have obtained an unimaginable opportunity after being enveloped by the poison heart lotus. After the wave of baleful sword light, all the remaining experts of Duhu City had ugly expressions, especially the God King who had forcefully endured the baleful sword light. His chest had been blasted into a bloody mess. He was heavily injured. When they looked at the Azura expert again, they couldn't see his figure clearly anymore because the white light around him was much thicker than before. The ring of light above the Azura expert's head wasn't as stable as before. It was constantly expanding and contracting, and a white light was being emitted from it. The huge, fiendish crystal under the Azura expert's feet was strangely revealing a thick, blood-like tube. Inside the tube, there was a pure, fiendish energy that was constantly flowing upwards. This isn't a fiendish crystal, it's a fiendish heart, the God King from the housekeeper exclaimed. She looked very excited. For a moment, the eyes of the powerhouses of Duhu City were filled with greed. These God King experts were naturally knowledgeable, and they knew what a fiendish heart like this was. Miss Jing also flew back to Shaolin Yu's side. However, her originally delicate and rosy face was now as pale as a sheet of frost. Through the thick white curtain of light, everyone could vaguely hear the Azura expert's angry roar. After waiting for a while and seeing that the Azura expert hadn't attacked again, everyone relaxed a little. They could withstand the fiendish sword lights once or twice, but they wouldn't be able to do so many times. The only thing that made it hard for everyone to calm down was that the white light surrounding the Shura elite was gradually fading. The blood vessels in the huge fiendish heart were also gradually disappearing. Not long after, everyone saw the Azura expert's body again. The Azura expert's situation was very bad. His clothes were tattered, and his face and body were covered with horrifying wounds. The wounds were so deep that even his bones could be seen. Blood was seeping out of them along with wisps of fiendish energy. His previous arrogance and disdain for the experts of whose city were now gone. The Azura expert's miserable state proved that he wasn't someone they couldn't deal with. Chapter 578. Not only was his body covered in wounds and bloodstains, the Azura master's face was still hideous and terrifying, but at the same time, there was also a deep fatigue on his face. I'm recuperating here. I've never harmed any of you. Why have you come to disturb me? The Azura's lips trembled as he asked. Naturally, no one would answer him. Everyone frowned and stared at the Azura expert. I know that you can see that I'm not in a good state right now. You want to steal my treasures while I'm in a bad state. However, I must remind you that I'm a god emperor and you're just a mid-divine king. If you force me into a corner, I'll drag you all down with me, even if I have to risk my life. The Azura said angrily and threateningly. The experts of Duhu City couldn't help but look at each other. Everyone tacitly chose to gather together. Since things had gotten to this point, no one had any intention of leaving. Everyone could see that this Azura expert was either recuperating from his injuries or being imprisoned here. Once he broke through, no one could guarantee that he wouldn't slaughter his way into Duhu City and kill everyone who had disturbed and harmed him today. If a god emperor Azura went berserk, even the entire Duhu City wouldn't be able to stop him. If we don't kill this beast here, we'll all move out of Duhu City and go into hiding. The city guard commander said, "There's nothing to discuss. Everyone, let's attack together and kill him." From the looks of it, he won't be able to last long. The Qi clan's sloppy, godly king said. After saying that, the Qi clan's sloppy, godly king raised his golden sword and sent a golden sword light towards the Azura wrapped in white light. This golden sword light was exactly the same as the one that had cut through the iron chain bridge outside Durban City. It was like a golden rainbow, vast and sharp. Impudent, the Azura expert roared and waved his hand, sending out a baleful light sword that destroyed the golden sword light. When he attacked again, the white light above the Azura's head flashed again. Waves of white light flowed down and circled around his body before turning into small white blades of light that cut into his body. Immediately, another deep wound appeared on his body. Seeing this, everyone else attacked as well. Even Guan Yiwei sent out a dozen rays of light with his fan. Xiaoling Yu didn't stay idle either. He attacked from afar with his primal chaos seal. Although the Azura was furious, he could only send out baleful sword lights to defend himself. Naturally, more and more wounds appeared on his body. Because the frequency of his attacks was too fast, the white light emitted from the white halo above his head became much denser, and his figure gradually disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone realized that the white light was only released to restrict the Shura. It didn't stop their attacks, so they didn't stop attacking. Since that's the case, let's die together. Boom! First, the Azura's desperate roar was heard. Then, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. Everyone saw a red light flash in front of their eyes. Then, a red and white shockwave swept over them. Everyone seemed to have thought of this, so they didn't forget to defend themselves when they attacked. Even though the shockwave easily destroyed the defenses that everyone had set up together, its power was reduced by half. Coupled with the fact that everyone was using defensive divine artifacts to protect themselves, when a shockwave swept past them, they only spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and suffered injuries of varying degrees. Not many of them died on the spot. The only God King stage expert who died was the one who was injured earlier. The shockwave came suddenly, but it also disappeared quickly. When everyone stabilized their bodies, they looked at the Azura's position again, but he was nowhere to be seen. Obviously, the Azura had chosen to self-destruct in desperation. He wanted to die together with everyone. The power of the Azura's self-destruction wasn't small. The two white pearls that had formed a white circle were now floating in the air. The evil heart had shrunk to 1/3 of its original size. The self-destruction of a God King stage expert was enough to kill everyone in Duhu City, but in reality, the power wasn't as strong as expected. Everyone guessed that it was because the Azura's cultivation was restricted by the white light curtain, and because he was seriously injured, so they didn't think too much about it. Right now, there were 3 treasures waiting for everyone. After looking around for a bit, everyone rushed over together. However, to everyone's surprise, when they had just crossed half of the distance, a thick blood vessel suddenly stretched out from the heart of evil and wrapped around Qi Hongxian. Qi Hongxian only had time to let out a cry of surprise before Sha Xian pulled him in front of her and then disappeared in a flash. Qi Hongxuan's strange disappearance made everyone's heart skip a beat. They couldn't help but stop rushing forward. It was precisely because of this that Xiaoling Yu, who was slower than the God King stage experts, was able to catch up with them. Xiaoling Yu also saw Qi Hongxuan's strange disappearance, but he didn't stop. Instead, he continued to rush forward. By the time the God King stage experts recovered from their shock, he was already less than 10 feet away from the 2 white pearls. Previously, everyone had a tacit understanding to deal with the Azura, but now that the Azura was dead, they naturally wanted to take the treasures for themselves. Therefore, the God King stage experts couldn't just let Xiaoling Yu take the treasures. They knew that they couldn't catch up with him, so they attacked Xiaoling Yu's back. Once these attacks hit Xiaoling Yu, no matter how strong his body was, he would die. However, these attacks were all aimed at the 2 white pearls. If Xiaoling Yu didn't take these attacks head-on, he could only choose to dodge to the side. In this way, he would lose the opportunity to snatch the 2 white pearls first. No matter how good the treasures were, they weren't as important as his life. After a moment of hesitation, Xiao Lingyu dodged to the side. The God King stage expert's attacks were hurried, so they didn't lock onto Xiao Lingyu. After Xiao Lingyu dodged, they whistled past the two white pearls. Although the two white pearls weren't hit, they were affected by the momentum of the attacks and involuntarily flew to the side. One of the white pearls flew in the same direction as Xiao Lingyu dodged, and Xiao Lingyu quickly caught it in his hand. Although Guan Yiwei was strong, his speed was much slower than the God King stage experts. He was currently lagging behind the God King stage experts. However, he boldly opened his folding fan and shot out more than 10 streamers towards the God King stage experts. Even the God King stage experts didn't dare to underestimate the attack of a top-quality divine weapon. The God King stage experts had no choice but to stop or dodge to the side. With Guan Yiwei's interference, the God King stage expert of the Guan family naturally took the lead and grabbed the other white pearl. Let's go. The God King stage expert of the Guan family reacted quickly. After grabbing the white pearl, she didn't think about the murderous heart. She wrapped her son, Guan Yiwei, and fled at full speed. The other God Kings weren't as fast as the God King stage expert of the Guan family. They were also injured, so it was impossible for them to catch up to the God King stage expert. Therefore, some of them turned their attention to Xiao Lingyu, while others turned their attention to the murderous heart. Xiao Lingyu knew that he couldn't fight with so many God Kings, but if he wanted to escape, he could only rely on his saint weapon. Under such circumstances, Xiao Lingyu didn't hesitate. He took out his tubular saint weapon and entered it with Miss Jing in an attempt to escape. The God Kings wouldn't let Xiao Lingyu escape. Unfortunately, their attacks couldn't destroy the tubular saint weapon. They couldn't even increase the speed of the tubular saint weapon. That must be a top-quality, flying divine weapon. One of the God Kings narrowed his eyes as he watched the tubular saint weapon fly away in a streak of light. No one could believe that a cultivator like Xiao Lingyu, who had just entered the Divine Lord realm, would possess a saint weapon. The Guan family took 2 treasures for themselves. That's not very nice of them. They seem to have forgotten that they've only just started out in the city, said a God King with an ugly expression. We'll talk about this when we get back. There's still a murderous heart here, said the city guard commander with a wave of his hand. That murderous heart is a little strange. I'm afraid it won't be easy to take it away, said the sloppy God King. As he spoke, one of the God Kings couldn't hold back anymore. He charged toward the murderous heart, but as soon as he got close, he was struck by a thick and powerful vein that suddenly appeared. He was sent flying far away, spraying blood along the way. Seeing this, everyone became even more cautious. They all chose to observe first, not daring to act rashly. They looked at it carefully for a while and felt even more surprised. The murderous heart was sparkling and translucent, almost transparent. Although there was a blood-colored mist flowing through it, everyone could still vaguely see that there was a human cultivator in the center. That's my chief family's Hongxian. The sloppy God King's face was filled with shock, but he still swallowed the low cry he was about to utter. After observing for a while, another God King couldn't help but make a move. However, they were all beaten back by the veins. The sloppy God King of the chief family knew that Qi Hongxian wasn't dead, so he didn't make a move. He thought back to what Qi Hongxian had said to him and vaguely felt that this junior of the chief family had obtained a great opportunity. Xiao Lingyu quickly brought Miss Jing to the Gate of Light. They passed through the Gate of Light and flew through the tunnel. After a few more twists and turns, they easily arrived outside Evil Wind Valley without the obstruction and interference of the murderous creatures. Chapter 579. Xiao Lingyu had already put the tubular saint artifact away when they charged out of the barrier. Without the extreme speed of the tubular saint artifact, the God King of Women and Guan Yiwei naturally caught up to Xiao Lingyu and Miss Jing very quickly. You didn't lose the bead, did you? The God King of Women asked in concern. Xiao Lingyu nodded. That's good. Our Guan family didn't spend so much effort for nothing, said the God King of Women. As the God King of Women spoke, she released a wave of divine power that enveloped Xiao Lingyu and Miss Jing as well. She rapidly flew towards Duhu City. After confirming that they were out of danger and that it was impossible for other God Kings to chase after them, the God King of Women finally stopped and found a place to rest. While resting, Guan Yiwei sent a message to Guan Yichuan and the other God Kings of the Guan family, waiting for them to meet up with him. "Brother Xiao, can you give me the bead you obtained?" One night, Miss Jing asked Xiao Lingyu, who was lying under a tree. Xiao Lingyu frowned slightly. "Miss, you should have seen that I risked being attacked by several God Kings for the sake of this bead. I almost lost my life." Miss Jing lowered her head and muttered to herself. Afterwards, she didn't say anything else and silently left with her head lowered. Just as Miss Jing had said before, the bead was indeed very useful to Xiao Lingyu. He had already carefully examined it before. The bead was brimming with a pure and heavy divine aura. Not only could it suppress his demonic nature to a certain extent, it was also extremely useful in suppressing his inner demons. If that was all, Xiao Lingyu wouldn't be unwilling to give it up. The bead had an even greater use to him, and that was to increase his chances of success when he attempted the 7th revolution of the 9 revolutions chaos formula. Such an important bead naturally wasn't something that Miss Jing could take away just because she wanted it. Unless someone close to him needed it, Xiao Lingyu wouldn't give it away at all. Although Miss Jing and Xiao Lingyu were considered friends now, their relationship was very distant. Moreover, Xiao Lingyu also felt that Miss Jing's background was mysterious, so it wasn't appropriate for them to have a close relationship. After being rejected by Xiao Lingyu, Miss Jing went to the Divine King of Women's side. Although it was a little hard to ask, she still braced herself and asked, "Senior, can you give me that white bead?" The God King of Women and Guan Yiwei had the same reaction as Xiao Lingyu when they heard this. They frowned. They were also suspicious of Miss Jing's origins. Moreover, Miss Jing had just joined Wildfire not long ago. They naturally didn't think that Miss Jing would dare to make such a request of them. They also didn't have the slightest intention of giving the bead away. "We are naturally very grateful that Miss is willing to work for our steward. However, this bead is no ordinary treasure. We, along with our steward, have paid quite a price for it. I'm afraid we can't agree to Miss's request. After all, Miss doesn't have the same surname, and you haven't sworn eternal loyalty to our steward," the God King of Women said with a troubled expression. "This bead actually isn't very useful to you, but it's very useful to me. I hope Senior can agree to it. If you have any conditions, Senior can directly state them. I will definitely do my best to fulfill them," Miss Jing said, unwilling to give up. This, the God King of Women pondered for a while before saying, "Unless Miss becomes a member of our steward or swears eternal loyalty to our steward, I really can't think of any conditions that would make us give this bead to you. If I ask you to give me 2 supreme-grade divine artifacts in exchange, I'm afraid you won't be able to fulfill my wish." Miss Jing, who had always been as calm and tranquil as water, revealed a dejected and disappointed expression. Whether it was becoming a member of the steward, swearing eternal loyalty, or giving up 2 supreme-grade divine artifacts, they were all prices that Miss Jing didn't want to pay. Of course, if she really had 2 supreme-grade divine artifacts that she didn't need, she wouldn't hesitate to exchange them. Unfortunately, she didn't. Just as Miss Jing was feeling gloomy, Guan Yiwei's eyes suddenly lit up, and he transmitted a message to his mother. The God King of Women was first surprised when she heard her son's message, but then her face lit up with joy. She asked Miss Jing, "Miss, are you already married?" Miss Jing didn't quite understand, but she still shook her head. That's good." The God King of Women smiled with satisfaction and said, "What do you think of my son?" "Guan Yiwei, miss." Miss Jing was even more surprised. She stuck a peek at Guan Yiwei and couldn't help blushing. Someone as smart as her naturally knew what the God King of Women meant. "My son, Guan Yiwei, has cultivated for less than 100 million years. He can definitely be considered extremely talented. Moreover, his status in our steward is similar to that of the head of the house. If it weren't for the fact that he's much younger than his peers, he wouldn't have lost the position of head of the house to anyone else. Among the younger generation of Duhu City, there's no one who can compare to my son. Even in a high-class city full of talents, my son is considered outstanding. If Miss and my son are to be married, I don't think you'll. Senior, I don't want to talk about marriage right now. Miss Jing shyly lowered her head before the God King of Women could finish. From the bottom of her heart, Miss Jing also felt that Guan Yiwei was not only handsome, but also intelligent and talented. He was indeed the ideal son-in-law that many female cultivators dreamed of. But even if she had a good impression of Guan Yiwei, they hadn't interacted much and didn't know each other well. How could she agree to the God King of Women's proposal? The God King of Women wasn't angered by Miss Jing's refusal. She was experienced and discerning. From Miss Jing's reaction and eyes, she could see that she didn't dislike Guan Yiwei at all. Instead, she had a good impression of him. Thus, she said, "As long as Miss can agree first, I'll give you this bead and we'll be considered engaged. Miss, you can spend some time with my son. If you're dissatisfied in the future, you can cancel the engagement." Miss Jing hesitated again. The God King of Women said she could cancel the engagement at will, but since she had already agreed, she couldn't just find a random reason to cancel the engagement. How could marriage be a trifling matter? But that bead was indeed very important to Miss Jing. This put her in a dilemma. Can I really cancel the engagement? Miss Jing asked after thinking for a while. Of course. This engagement is only a verbal agreement. It's not like you and my son have to make soul vows. There's no binding force. The God King of Women smiled generously. All right, I agree. Miss Jing didn't hesitate and agreed. My son's engagement is an important matter for the Guan family. Even if it's only a verbal agreement, the family head needs to know. We also need to find a witness. Does Miss Jing find this arrangement difficult? The God King of Women continued. Miss Jing frowned slightly, but she nodded again when she thought about the other party's request and found it reasonable. If I really cancel the engagement in the future, then the bead. Miss can still keep the bead. Before Miss Jing could finish, Guan Yiwei confidently and generously agreed. Aren't you afraid that I'll use this engagement to take away your bead? Miss Jing asked curiously. I believe you're not that kind of person. I also believe that I didn't misjudge you. I also believe that we can get along very well in the future, Guan Yiwei said with a smile. Although this matter had been settled, the God King of Women wouldn't give the white bead to Miss Jing without an official engagement ceremony. Soon, the Guan family's divine monarchs who had left Evil Wind Valley early gathered. Everyone returned to Hu City under the God King of Women's lead. The journey was very peaceful, and they soon arrived at Hu City. On the way, the God King of Women and Guan Yiwei vaguely mentioned that they wanted to take away the white bead that Xiao Lingyu had obtained. They even asked Xiao Lingyu to raise conditions, but Xiao Lingyu tactfully rejected them. When they reached the city, the Guan family's experts all returned to the Guan family's courtyard. Xiao Lingyu and the others naturally returned to Wildfire's camp. A few days later, Xiao Lingyu received an invitation from the Butler courtyard, which was signed by the head of the Butler family. Xiao Lingyu thought that the Guan family's head had invited him to the banquet because of the white bead, but when he braced himself and arrived at the Guan family's courtyard, he realized that wasn't the case. In a hall used to receive guests, the Guan family had decorated the banquet with a festive atmosphere. No matter how one looked at it, it didn't look like a business meeting. It looked more like a wedding. The guests in the hall were at least early-stage divine monarchs. Most of them were experts from the Guan family. There were many small tables set up in the hall. On them were many delicious fruits, dishes, and drinks. When the banquet began, the Guan family's head went on stage to speak. Only then did Xiao Lingyu realize that this was an engagement ceremony. However, he never expected that the two parties involved would be Guan Yiwei and Miss Jing. Xiongmeng, Zhang Hai, and the others didn't come because their cultivations were too low. Otherwise, they would have been dumbstruck. Amidst everyone's applause, Miss Jing, whom Xiao Lingyu hadn't seen for 2 days, entered the banquet hall hand in hand with the elegant Guan Yiwei. Petals as delicate and beautiful as Miss Jing's immediately floated down from the top of the hall. Miss Jing and Guan Yiwei slowly walked toward the stage amidst the rain of petals. The engagement ceremony was very simple. It was just an exchange of tokens of love. Then, the guests drank to their heart's content. Xiao Lingyu didn't have many friends in the hall. However, Wildfire's Guan Yun brothers and Zhou Jin, who were under Miss Jing's control, came over to drink with him. Originally, everyone had come to Wildfire to take control of the mercenary group and gradually separate themselves from the Guan family. But now that Miss Jing was engaged to Guan Yiwei, the original plan could naturally be scrapped. This made Xiao Lingyu feel a little awkward. Although he seemed to be drinking to his heart's content, he still felt that something wasn't right. An hour after the banquet began, Guan Yiwei and Miss Jing, who were serving wine to the guests, arrived at the table where Xiao Lingyu and the others were seated. Congratulations, congratulations. Chapter 580. The banquet lasted for 4 hours before it ended. Xiao Lingyu returned to the Wildfire's campsite with a gloomy expression. Senior Xiao, did something happen? Xiong Meng saw that Xiao Lingyu's expression wasn't good, so he went up to ask. Miss Jing is already engaged to Guan Yiwei from the Guan family. It's best that you all make plans early. After replying, Xiao Lingyu went into his room. After quietly pondering in his room for a while, Xiao Lingyu's mood gradually improved. He could guess that the reason why Miss Jing was engaged to Guan Yiwei was most likely because of the Guan family's Divine King's white bead. Since he couldn't give Miss Jing the white bead, she naturally had the right to fight for elsewhere. This was human nature, so Xiao Lingyu didn't need to be depressed over this. However, Miss Jing was already the Guan family's fiancée and was practically half a member of the Guan family. Xiao Lingyu could only dream of allying with Miss Jing to fight for the Guan family. Fortunately, Miss Jing didn't know much about his secrets and had sworn an oath to never reveal them. Otherwise, even if Miss Jing didn't want to reveal anything about him to the Guan family, Xiao Lingyu would have left the Wildfire long ago. Xiao Lingyu came to the Guan family because he wanted to use the Guan family's power to suppress the Qi family so that they wouldn't dare to openly attack him. In fact, he had already achieved this goal. At least, the sloppy Divine King of the Qi family had agreed not to seek revenge after his duel with Qi Hongbin on account of the Guan family and the City Lord's manor. However, that verbal agreement didn't have much binding power. The Qi family could secretly send people to continue taking revenge on him. It was up to the Qi family whether they were willing or not. The Qi family didn't need to care too much about that verbal agreement. Xiao Lingyu stayed in the city because Yueru was still under Qi Hongshuan's control. He felt guilty towards Yueru, so he couldn't just leave. He still couldn't completely expel the poison that Qi Hongxian left in Xiao Lingyu's body. The poison was similar to Xiao Lingyu's poison and had already merged into his blood and bones. However, it didn't belong to him at all. As long as Qi Hongxian wasn't dead, he couldn't expel the poison that belonged to Qi Hongxian. In this way, Qi Hongxian could find Xiao Lingyu's location at any time, and it wouldn't be easy for Xiao Lingyu to leave the city. It was not Xiao Lingyu's character to slip away before the matter was settled. Even if he wanted to leave, he would have to settle the matter first before leaving. Miss Jing returned to the Wildfire's base soon after. Her room was in Xiao Lingyu's suite, so she was surrounded by Xiong Meng and the others as soon as she returned. Xiong Meng and the others surrounded Miss Jing, but they didn't know what to say. This engagement is just a temporary measure. It doesn't mean that I've become a member of the Guan family, Miss Jing explained with a smile when she saw everyone's puzzled expression. Hee, we don't care about that. We're all people who aren't strong. We're already very satisfied to be able to stay in the Wildfire. We rely on Miss Jing in the Wildfire. Even if you really become a member of the Guan family, we'll still rely on you. It doesn't make much of a difference to us, Xiong Meng said with a smile. Boss Xiong is right. Miss Jing, you can think for yourself. We'll just follow you in the future, Zhang Hai agreed. Miss Jing was a little nervous at first. She didn't know how to face these old friends, but she felt a lot more relaxed after hearing their words. In the next few years, Duhu City was very peaceful. The incident in Evil Wind Valley didn't seem to affect the city at all. The large families often made things difficult for the Guan family and used all kinds of methods to restrict their development. The Guan family, on the other hand, was slowly improving. The Guan family had a very good plan for their family's development, so they weren't in a hurry. The Qi family didn't talk about Shaoling Yu anymore. They seemed to have forgotten their hatred for Shaoling Yu. Shaoling Yu had an even more peaceful life. He almost never left the wildfire's base. Miss Jing didn't consider him first when the wildfire took on a mission. However, Shaoling Yu's calmness was only on the surface. He locked himself in his room and constantly let himself fall into the inverse mystic realm. He endured the torment of his inner demons and constantly improved his realm. If he wanted to take a shortcut to quickly improve his realm, he naturally had to endure some pain that ordinary people couldn't endure. Every time he entered the inverse mystic realm, the inner demons tormented his soul and consciousness. Not only were there some scenes that he didn't want to see, there were also scenes of chaos. After Shaoling Yu got used to the inverse mystic realm, he began to understand those scenes. The more he understood and understood, the greater his improvement after passing the inverse mystic realm. The white bead had been refined by Shaoling Yu. It existed in Shaoling Yu's body and could greatly suppress the inner demons in the inverse mystic realm. It reduced the negative effects of those scenes on Shaoling Yu and also increased the positive effects of the inverse mystic realm on Shaoling Yu. The grayish-black metal piece in the golden soul bead could ensure that Shaoling Yu's soul wouldn't be destroyed and Shaoling Yu's soul wouldn't be corroded by the inner demons in the inverse mystic realm. However, it couldn't allow Shaoling Yu to obtain the greatest benefits every time he passed the inverse mystic realm. However, with this white bead, Shaoling Yu didn't have to completely guard his mind every time he entered the inverse mystic realm. He could divide his attention to comprehend and understand. This allowed him to maximize the benefits that the inverse mystic realm brought him every time. In just a few years, Shaoling Yu's realm had already reached the mid-stage of the chaotic mystic enlightening realm. If his chief master knew that his disciple could cultivate like this in the chaotic mystic enlightening realm, he would definitely be very surprised and gratified. Although the gap between the mid-stage and late stage of the chaotic mystic enlightening realm was rather large, if Shaoling Yu continued to cultivate in the inverse mystic realm, he could reach the late stage of the chaotic mystic enlightening realm within 100 years. If a normal cultivator was in the chaotic mystic enlightening realm, it would take at least tens of millions of years to achieve a breakthrough. However, Shaoling Yu had shortened this time by countless times. It was just that being tortured by one's inner demons all year round was not something that a normal cultivator could endure. Even if it wasn't dangerous, it was still a test of one's human nature. Therefore, Shaoling Yu couldn't always shut himself in his room to cultivate. He would occasionally come out for a walk and relax. After cultivating in seclusion once again, Shaoling Yu left the wildfire camp and walked around the city. A few years passed in the blink of an eye in the realm of the gods. Such a short period of time couldn't bring about much change in Duhu City. After walking for 4 hours, Shaoling Yu had just returned to the entrance of the wildfire camp when a guard handed him an invitation. Shaoling Yu opened the invitation and his heart skipped a beat. This invitation was sent by Yueru, and it was a wedding invitation. From the contents of the invitation, it could be seen that Yueru was going to be married to Qi Hongxian in 10 days. A few years ago, Shaoling Yu had attended an engagement ceremony that had made him feel depressed for a while. Now that Yueru was going to hold another wedding, and it was with Qi Hongxian, Shaoling Yu was a little dumbfounded. Life is really unpredictable. Shaoling Yu sighed, then put away the wedding invitation and walked into the depths of the camp. No matter what, Yueru had confessed to Shaoling Yu. Now that she was going to be married to someone else, Shaoling Yu was a little caught off guard. Shaoling Yu did not have any improper thoughts about Yueru. Back then, when Yueru had confessed to him and he had rejected her, he did not have the heart to do so. Now that Yueru was getting married, he only wished her well from the bottom of his heart. If Yueru was really going to be married to Qi Hongxian, Shaoling Yu could leave Duhu City without worry. As for the Qi family's pursuit, He could use the tube-shaped sacred weapon to escape after leaving the city. He wasn't at a disadvantage in his feud with the chief family, so he didn't have to do anything to the chief family. If Chi Hongxian can treat Yuru a little better, it's not impossible for me to let him off the hook for Yuru's sake, Xiaoling Yu thought. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Xiaoling Yu went to the chief family's compound alone. Although he had a feud with the chief family, Xiaoling Yu still had to attend Yueru's wedding. He didn't believe that the chief family would dare to do anything to him in public. Even if the chief family dared to openly violate the agreement, not giving face to the city lord's mansion and the steward, and made a move on Xiaoling Yu would at most reveal the sacred artifact. He would definitely not lose his life. The scale of Duhu City's chief family's compound far exceeded that of Kuin City's chief families. Not only did it occupy a larger area, but its walls were also taller and sturdier. At that moment, the entrance of the chief family's compound was decorated with lanterns and streamers. There were bands playing on both sides of the gate. There were also divine lord experts of the chief family welcoming guests at the entrance. Chi Hongshuan's status in Duhu City's chief family shouldn't be high. However, the chief family placed so much importance on his wedding and organized it in such a grand manner. There seemed to be something wrong. Xiaoling Yu didn't think too much about it. He slowly walked to the entrance and showed his invitation card. The divine lord of the chief family welcomed him warmly. In fact, many members of the chief family already knew Xiaoling Yu. After all, the battle between Qi Hongbin and him had caused quite a stir in the city. The divine lord of the chief family was a little surprised by Xiaoling Yu's arrival. However, since it was a joyous occasion, the chief family member welcoming guests naturally didn't show any ill intentions. Those who came to attend the wedding naturally had to bring gifts. Xiaoling Yu was no exception. After entering the chief family's compound, he threw a storage bag on the gift table. Then, he was led by some receptionists to the venue where the wedding was to be held. The chief family's wedding venue wasn't only decorated with a festive atmosphere, but it was also grand. The entire venue was in a large hall that was no less than 500 feet wide. There were also more than 100 small tables in the hall. When Xiaoling Yu arrived at the banquet hall, it was already filled with people. To his surprise, he glanced around and saw that Miss Jing and Guan Yiwei had arrived together and were already seated. Chapter 581. I remember that Brother Xiao has some enmity with the chief family. Why would the chief family invite Brother Xiao over? Guan Yiwei asked after Xiaoling Yu sat down. Miss Jing was also a bit worried. Could it be that they're plotting something? In the years after the engagement, Guan Yiwei and Miss Jing often spent time together. The two of them became closer and closer, which made many of the Guan family members envious. The bride used to be from the same village as me, Xiaoling Yu vaguely explained. I see. Miss Jing nodded. Even if the bride is from the same village as Brother Xiao, you still have to be careful. After all, you have a deep connection with the chief family, and the bride is now a member of the chief family, Guan Yiwei kindly reminded. Although Miss Jing never revealed Xiaoling Yu to the Guan family, Guan Yiwei could tell that Xiaoling Yu wasn't an ordinary person. Now that Xiaoling Yu was still in the Guan family's wildfire, Guan Yiwei was naturally on Xiaoling Yu's side. The chief family probably won't take the initiative to cause trouble on such a big day, Miss Jing said. That old monster from the chief family doesn't care about a big day, Guan Yiwei said worriedly. The city guard commander, who had an agreement with that old monster from the chief family, is also here today. I think that as long as Brother Xiao is calm, the chief family will also treat Brother Xiao as a guest, Miss Jing said. I'm just afraid that Brother Xiao won't be calm. Guan Yiwei seemed to have seen through Xiaoling Yu's thoughts. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble for the Guan family, Xiaoling Yu said indifferently. The three of them didn't say anything else. The guests gradually arrived, and the wedding began. Duhu City's City Lord Manor didn't seem to be very busy. Xiaoling Yu remembered that when Guan Yiwei and Miss Jing got engaged a few years ago, it was this gray-haired city lord who came to witness the marriage. And this time, for Chi Hongxian and Yueru's wedding, the city lord was also standing on the stage. It seemed like he was also a witness. Cheerful and festive music sounded, and a rain of flowers fell slowly from the top of the hall. Yueru and Qi Hongxian walked along the red carpet to the stage. Yueru was wearing a red phoenix robe and a pearl phoenix crown. Although she was barefaced, she was still incomparably delicate and charming. Moreover, there was a sense of liveliness and elegance that made people fond of her. However, through the strings of pearls, it could be seen that Yueru's seemingly smiling face carried a hint of bitterness instead of shyness. Qi Hongxian was also wearing a red brocade robe. Like Guan Wei, he had a dignified appearance. He and the matron of honor, Yueru, were holding a red silk ribbon together. The smile on his face wasn't obvious, but the corners of his mouth curved up occasionally. Although Qi Hongxuan's expression didn't seem strange, Xiaolingyu felt that it was strange that he could be so calm in the face of so many experts from the Qi family in Duhu City. Xiaolingyu didn't know Qi Hongxian very well, but from the Linggu Valley to Kuan City and then from Kuan City to Duhu City, he had interacted with Qi Hongxian many times. In the past, Qi Hongxian was calm and collected, but there was still a hint of immaturity and frivolity in his bones. Now, it was very different. Xiaolingyu couldn't tell what had changed in Qi Hongxian, but he could at least see that Qi Hongxian seemed to have taken a big step forward compared to a few years ago, and there seemed to be a fundamental change. Yueru was originally a chess piece that Qi Hongxian used to blackmail him. Xiaolingyu never thought that Qi Hongxian would marry Yueru. After all, Yueru's cultivation hadn't reached the heavenly god stage yet, and she was only a small medicine master in the Qi family. Their marriage wasn't symmetrical at all. If it was said that Qi Hongxian and Yueru's wedding was used by the Qi family to deal with Xiaolingyu, Xiaolingyu would never believe it. After all, he was only a divine lord cultivator on the surface, and it wasn't worthwhile for the Qi family to spend so much effort on him. Just as Xiaolingyu was frowning in thought, the two newlyweds walked to the end of the red carpet and went up the stage. The wedding ceremony was not complicated. The two newlyweds bowed to the heaven and earth, the head of the Qi family, and the wedding witnesses. After bowing to each other, the ceremony was complete. Then, the two newlyweds, accompanied by the head of the Guan family, toasted the guests. An hour later, Qi Hongxian, Yueru, and the Qi family had arrived at Xiaolingyu's table. After everyone drank a cup, Yueru said to Xiaolingyu, "Yueru is very happy that big brother Xiao can come. Haha, no matter what, we are from the same village. How can I not come?" Xiaolingyu said with a smile, "You are from the same village. Although you are in two different families now, you should interact more in the future," Qi Hongxian interrupted. "Yes, we should interact more." Xiaolingyu nodded and said, "Yueru and I are like siblings. Brother Qi, you must treat Yueru well in the future. If there is anything else, I won't agree." Qi Hongxian put an arm around Yueru's shoulder and promised, "Yueru won't suffer in the Guan family." There were too many guests, so the Guan family head brought the newlyweds to another table to toast. Xiaolingyu had been observing Yueru's reaction as he spoke earlier. He did not notice anything out of the ordinary, so he felt relieved. Guan Wei was very famous among the younger generation in Duhu City. He was known as the #1 expert in Duhu City, below the Divine King. This made many young talents in Duhu City unconvinced, so they constantly came to toast and test him. No matter what, Xiaolingyu was a member of the Guan mercenary group. If he wanted to leave, he would have to go with Guan Wei and Miss Jing. Guan Wei couldn't leave for a while, so he could only stay and accompany him. Guan Wei was a straightforward person. With his late-stage divine monarch cultivation, he wasn't afraid of drinking with the other young talents in Duhu City. There were too many young talents who wanted to get Guan Wei drunk and embarrass Guan Wei at the banquet. They couldn't all go to Guan Wei, so some of them targeted Xiaolingyu. Xiaolingyu said that he was happy for Yueru's wedding, but he felt a little uncomfortable. These people came to drink with him, so he was satisfied. Just like Guan Wei, Xiaolingyu didn't refuse anyone. However, Guan Wei usually talked to people for a while first. It seemed like he was interacting with them, but he was actually stalling for time. Xiaolingyu was different. He didn't hesitate to drink with anyone who came to him. Anyway, the wine didn't have much effect on Xiaolingyu. He felt that it was very boring, so he drank jug after jug. Xiao Yu could ignore the alcohol and divine power in the wine, but the other young elites of Duhu City couldn't. Moreover, the wine the Qi clan used to entertain guests was of high quality. Ordinary cultivators couldn't drink much of it. Many cultivators who wanted to drink with Xiao Yu directly got drunk. Xiao Yu was fine after drinking one jug or two. Although everyone was very suspicious, many people thought that he couldn't hold on for much longer. Perhaps he would collapse after one more jug or two. Therefore, more people came to toast him. In less than an hour, more than 20 young talents in Duhu City had been drunk by Xiao Yu. His face was only slightly red, but this slight redness was forced out by him. Is he really a divine monarch? Many cultivators who were about to come up had this question in their hearts, so they didn't dare to move their feet. Qi Hongxian finally finished toasting. He also came over and sat next to Xiao Yu. They can't hold their liquor. I'll drink with Brother Xiao. Qi Hongxian waved his sleeves, and the table was filled with wine jugs. He said to Xiao Yu with great interest. Yueru had already been sent to the bridal chamber, so Qi Hongxian didn't have anyone to accompany him. At this moment, Xiao Yu really wanted to attack Qi Hongxian. However, when he remembered that this was the Qi family and there were many divine monarchs here, as well as Yueru's happiness, he forced himself to endure. Qi Hongshuan's seating attracted even more young talents in Duhu City. The small table was surrounded by 20 to 30 people. Haha, Brother Qi, you're the groom today. Everyone will definitely drink with you, Xiao Yu said in a moderate voice. Yes, yes, yes. Brother Qi, let me toast you. Immediately, someone raised his cup to toast Qi Hongxian. Many people behind him responded. These people realized that it was too difficult to get Guan Yiwei or Xiao Yu drunk. Therefore, they turned their attention to Qi Hongxian. To everyone's surprise, Qi Hongxian was able to do the same as Xiao Yu. No matter how many cups he drank or how many jugs he drank, he didn't show any signs of drunkenness. One had to know that he had already drunk a lot of wine in the round of toasting. Therefore, the young talents in Duhu City began to choose a new target. However, after an hour, all of them had collapsed. Xiao Yu, Guan Yiwei, and Qi Hongxian were still safe and sound. I was wondering how Brother Guan could drink so much. It turns out that you're about to break through to the divine monarch realm. Congratulations. Xiao Yu originally didn't understand why Guan Yiwei could drink so much. However, after hearing Qi Hongshuan's words, he understood. However, Xiao Yu and Guan Yiwei both looked at Qi Hongxian in surprise. This was because Qi Hongxian could see through Guan Yiwei's cultivation level. Although Xiao Yu was quite strong and didn't fear late-stage divine monarchs like Guan Yiwei, he couldn't see through Guan Yiwei's cultivation level. Qi Hongxian could see through it either because Qi Hongshuan's cultivation level was higher than his, or because Qi Hongxian had a more powerful prying technique. Qi Hongshuan's words also reminded Xiao Yu and Guan Yiwei. The two of them used their consciousness to spy on Qi Hongxian. What surprised them even more was that Qi Hongxian clearly didn't use any powerful techniques to hide his cultivation level. However, the two of them couldn't see through Qi Hongshuan's cultivation level. Could it be that Qi Hongshuan's cultivation level had surpassed the peak of the late-stage divine monarch realm? Xiao Yu couldn't believe his own guess. After all, when he first met Qi Hongxian, Qi Hongshuan's cultivation level was only at the heavenly god realm. How many years had it been? If Qi Hongxian had really surpassed the late-stage divine monarch realm, then this progress was too shocking. Even Xiao Yu couldn't compare. Chapter 582. Xiao Yu was very familiar with the fiendish aura. After all, he had just gone to the Evil Wind Valley a few years ago. Could Qi Hongxian have found something in the Evil Wind Valley? Xiao Yu and Guan Yiwei both thought of this because they saw Qi Hongxian safe and sound when they left the Evil Wind Valley. Everyone else was drunk or ran away. Next, it was Qi Hongxian, Guan Yiwei, and Xiao Yu's drinking contest. The first to lose was Guan Yiwei. Even though he was an early-stage god king, he couldn't completely ignore the wine's strength. Moreover, if he drank too much of it, the divine energy in it would accumulate. He wouldn't be able to quickly dissolve it unless he was a god king. Although Shaolin Yu could use his primal chaos divine energy to envelop the wine and divine energy in the wine, his primal chaos divine energy was limited. He couldn't contain an infinite amount of wine. Gradually, he felt like he couldn't hold on any longer. However, most of the guests had already left. Guan Wei had said that he had enjoyed himself to the fullest and didn't want to drink anymore. Thus, Qi Hongxian didn't continue to pester him. Although he was a little drunk, Guan Wei was still very sober after leaving the Qi residence. He said, Qi Hongshuan's strength is probably above mine. I feel that the yin qi in his body is too heavy. Although he suppressed and hid it well, it will affect his cultivation. With the yin and yang disharmony, it's useless no matter how fast he improves. Sooner or later, there will be problems. Miss Jing hit the nail on the head. Since the yin qi in his body is too heavy, why is he in a hurry to get married? Dual cultivation after marriage won't benefit him at all. After all, women belong to the yin attribute, Guan Wei said doubtfully. Haha, who said that one must dual cultivate after marriage? Miss Jing asked with a smile. Qi Hongxian is a shrewd person. He won't do anything that's disadvantageous to him, Shaolin Yu sneered. At this moment, in the depths of the Qi residence, the guests had all left. As the groom, Qi Hongxian finally had time to enter the bridal chamber. Yu Eru sat on a soft couch with 2 lines of tears on her face. It's our big day today. Why are you crying? After entering the room, Qi Hongxian sat next to Yu and asked gently as he wiped away the tears on Yu's face. It's nothing. Yu Eru looked away. You must still be thinking about Shaolin Yu. Qi Hongxian sighed and continued. You've seen it for yourself today. He's always been very calm, and he was sincere when he gave you his blessings. It's even to the extent that he left after enjoying himself to the fullest. This is sufficient to prove that he really doesn't have any feelings for you. I'm not thinking about him anymore, Yu replied softly. Yu came from a small village, after all. She was simple, but it was easy for her to change. She didn't have any great ambitions or background. Now that she was in the Qi family, she was being cared for and nurtured by the Qi family. Naturally, she was grateful to the Qi family. This was one of the important reasons why she agreed to marry Qi Hongxian. In fact, in terms of excellence, Shaolin Yu is indeed outstanding, but he's definitely not as outstanding as me. If I hadn't promised you that I wouldn't make things difficult for him, I could have easily killed him. Qi Hongxian said confidently. You won't go back on your words, right? Yu asked nervously. Haha, don't worry. As long as he knows what's good for him, I won't touch him. Qi Hongxian pulled Yu into his arms and smiled gently. You'll definitely be good to me in the future, right? Yu asked. You're already my wife. Who else should I be good to? Qi Hongxian said affirmatively. Let's not talk about Shaolin Yu. I have something important to tell you. What is it? Yu asked curiously. I'm currently cultivating a very powerful cultivation technique. However, this cultivation technique is extremely difficult to cultivate and has a lot of side effects. If I continue to cultivate it for a long time, it will be extremely disadvantageous to me in the future. Qi Hongxian said solemnly. Then don't cultivate it. When it comes to cultivation, you don't need to rush it. You just need to be stable and long-term. Your cultivation is much higher than mine, so you should know better. Yu advised. No, I've already started cultivating this cultivation technique. I can't give up. Otherwise, I'll die. Qi Hongxian shook his head. Then what should I do? Yu asked nervously. I need your help. Qi Hongxian said. Me? What can I do to help? Yu said in disbelief. Of course you can help. Don't forget that you're a talented alchemist. Your current level of alchemy might be a little low, but you can barely help me. You only need to help me refine some special medicines. Qi Hongxian nodded and said, If even I can refine them, then the Qi family has so many alchemists. They should be able to refine them. Yu said softly. They can't. Qi Hongxian waved his hand. Why? Yu frowned. Because I don't trust them. I have to leave such a big matter to the people I trust the most. Don't you think so? Qi Hongxian replied. Yu tilted his head and thought for a moment. He didn't say anything. Although the Qi family had many alchemists, they were all in charge of the family. Whatever medicine they refined was controlled by the Qi family. These alchemists weren't as simple and reliable as Yueru. They weren't as talented as Yueru. Qi Hongxian had chosen Yueru after considering many aspects. You have to remember that we're family. You can't reveal anything about me to outsiders, not even my father. Qi Hongxian added. Third young master, don't worry. Yueru isn't someone who doesn't know when to stop gossiping. Yueru replied. Ha, we're already married. Why are you still calling me third young master? Qi Hongxian intimately scratched Yueru's nose. Then what should I call you? Yueru was a little shy. You should call me husband. Qi Hongxian replied. Husband. Yueru's voice was as soft as a mosquito. To be honest, Qi Hongxian had always been very good to Yueru. Therefore, when Qi Hongxian proposed to her, Yueru, who had just left the mountain village, couldn't refuse. In addition, he had been rejected by Shaolin Yu and suffered a lot of emotional setbacks. I drank a lot of wine today. I'm going to the quiet room to refine the wine. You drank a lot too. Rest early. Qi Hongxian gently squeezed Yueru's shoulder and left the room. Although Yueru was ignorant, she knew that male and female cultivators had to dual cultivate after marriage. She didn't know how to accept this at first, but she didn't expect Qi Hongxian to use the excuse of refining the wine to keep her in the room. Maybe I really did drink too much. Yueru didn't think much of it. After Qi Hongxian left, she sat cross-legged on the bed and quietly meditated. Now that Yueru was married, the dispute between Shaolin Yu and the Qi family was basically over. Miss Jing and Guan Yiwei were getting closer and closer, so Wildfire naturally belonged to the housekeeper. Shaolin Yu felt that there was no need for him to continue staying in Duhu City, so he planned to leave. He had many more important things to do. After waiting quietly for 2 years, Shaolin Yu finally decided to leave when he saw that everything was peaceful. After walking out of Wildfire's camp, Shaolin Yu put away the recommendation jade token that Miss Jing had given him. According to Miss Jing, with this jade token, he could easily join a large family Jiang in the God Realm. Although he wasn't sure if Jiang Lanyue was in this family Jiang, there was no harm in asking around. After all, Jiang Lanyue was the first person Shaolin Yu had met after leaving Earth. Moreover, the two of them got along well in the Ancient God's Cave. He had been in the God Realm for so long, so it would be nice if he could meet Jiang Lanyue. Shaolin Yu didn't want to cause any more trouble, so he didn't greet anyone. He quietly left Wildfire's camp and headed for Duhu City South Gate. Getting out of the city was very smooth, but there were many cultivators near the city gate. He needed to find a secluded place to take out his tubular sacred weapon and quickly escape. Brother Xiao, please wait. Before he could find a secluded place, Shaolin Yu heard Qi Hongshuan's voice coming from not far behind him. This guy came really quickly. It seems like he's not going to let me go so easily. Shaolin Yu thought as he turned around. When Qi Hongxian came closer, he asked, Brother Qi, are you looking for me for something? Haha, where are you going, Brother Xiao? Qi Hongxian asked instead of answering. I'm just taking a walk, Shaolin Yu replied. I don't think Brother Xiao is just taking a walk. Brother Xiao wants to leave Duhu City, right? Qi Hongxian narrowed his eyes. If I really want to leave, are you going to stop me? Shaolin Yu said indifferently. I won't, but I have a business deal to discuss with Brother Xiao, Qi Hongxian said. Oh, who from your Qi clan do you want me to kill this time? Shaolin Yu asked with a sneer. Ah, I'm not going to kill anyone this time. Qi Hongxian smiled and waved his hand. Then, he said, I want to take Brother Zhao's white bead. It's one of the 2 beads that I obtained from the bottom of the Evil Wind Valley. I wonder if Brother Xiao is willing to help me? If you have any conditions, just say the word. Shaolin Yu shook his head and said, I won't give that bead to anyone else. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Brother Qi. Qi Hongxian said, Brother Xiao, don't do this every time. It will only worsen our relationship and put Yueru in a difficult position. Shaolin Yu's expression immediately turned cold when he heard Qi Hongxian mention Yueru again. He said, Yueru is already your wife. You'd better not make things difficult for her. Qi Hongxian continued, "Brother Xiao, just give that bead to me for the sake of Yueru. As long as it's something I can do, you can ask for anything." Xiao Yu continued to shake his head and said, "That's impossible. Just give up and don't use Yueru to threaten me. Not only will you not get what you want, but it will also reignite the hatred that I have for you that had already disappeared." Qi Hongshuan's smiling expression also turned cold. He snorted and said, "Brother Xiao, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I came here today because I'm determined to get that bead of yours. It's not up to you to be reluctant." Chapter 583. At this point, the two of them were already at daggers drawn. Qi Hongxian narrowed his eyes, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. It seemed that he was angry. Xiao Yu put his hands behind his back and raised his head. Not only was he not afraid, but he was even a little disdainful. If that's the case, then let's see who's the real deal. Seeing that Xiao Yu had no intention of compromising, Qi Hongxian did not want to waste any more time. He suddenly smiled wickedly at Xiao Yu, and then his body swayed and turned into a cloud of black poisonous gas. Seeing that cloud of black poisonous gas, Xiao Yu's heart could not help but tremble, and his eyelids also twitched. The black poisonous gas then rolled towards Xiao Yu. Waves of terrifying poison accompanied by bursts of murderous aura forced Xiao Yu to focus on dealing with it. Xiao Yu held the silver moon broken sword in his hand. When the poisonous gas approached, he suddenly stretched out one arm, and the chaotic primordial fire suddenly surged out of his palm. The chaotic primordial fire and the poisonous gas met instantly, but the poisonous gas had the upper hand. In the blink of an eye, the chaotic primordial fire was extinguished and continued to move forward. Xiao Yu shouted loudly and channeled his power into the silver moon broken sword, causing it to emit a sword light that was about 10 feet long and slashed toward the poisonous gas. What was surprising was that the poisonous gas, which was originally formed by Qi Hongxian, could split into two in an instant and quickly rush toward him from the left and right sides. Within the poisonous gas, Qi Hongshuan's strange laughter could be heard. At this moment, Qi Hongxian gave people the impression that he was a demon from the Nine Nether Abyss. Xiao Yu did not care about the poisonous gas on his left side. Instead, he quickly moved and slashed at the poisonous gas on his right side with the silver moon broken sword. What made Xiao Yu feel even more strange was that the poisonous gas on this side split into two again. As for the poisonous fog behind him, it turned into a poisonous arrow and struck Xiao Yu's back with a speed that he couldn't dodge. Even though Xiao Yu's physical defense was very strong, some of the poison in the poisonous fog was still able to enter his body. After these toxins entered her body, they instantly split apart and merged with the toxins that were already in Xiao Yu's body. Qi Hongshuan's poison was similar to the poison in Xiao Yu's body. After it entered his body, it was extremely secretive. Xiao Yu could not expel it at all. However, these toxins did not belong to Xiao Yu. They wreaked havoc in Xiao Yu's body, greatly limiting Xiao Yu's strength. Xiao Yu's body rushed forward for a distance. Just as she steadied herself, she was shocked to find that she was surrounded by 8 clouds of poisonous fog. Jieja! Qi Hongshuan's strange laughter came from all directions at the same time. Then, Xiao Yu saw the 8 balls of poisonous fog strangely turn into 8 black lotus flowers. The 8 black lotus flowers spun around Xiao Yu faster and faster. For a moment, Xiao Yu did not know how to react. When the 8 black lotuses formed a circle, a brownish-red fiendish color gradually appeared within the blackness. Although the fiendish aura in the surroundings was still so weak and sparse, the frightening fiendish energy fluctuation became more and more obvious and powerful. Moreover, the murderous energy waves contained a deadly poison. They surrounded and corroded Xiao Yu together. Xiao Yu felt the space around him gradually solidifying. The pressure was increasing. The murderous energy waves acted on his entire body, forming a special territory around him. It also greatly limited his strength, speed, and condition. The deadly poison contained in the murderous energy waves also continuously invaded Xiao Lingyu's body. It worked together with the poison that had already entered his body previously. Under such circumstances, Xiao Lingyu finally realized that even if Qi Hongxian had not reached the Divine King realm, he was not someone a Divine Lord Cultivator could deal with. Even though Xiao Lingyu had reached the mid-stage of the mysterious enlightening realm, he actually did not have the strength to fight a Divine King. Qi Hongxian was able to use the characteristics of his body to create such a territory. It proved that he already had the power of a Divine King. It was no wonder that Qi Hongxian dared to come find Xiao Lingyu and attack him. Xiao Lingyu knew that he would not be able to pass easily today. The situation was getting more and more dangerous. He did not hesitate. With a thought, the sacred artifact, the yin-yang mirror, appeared above his head. He frantically poured his power into the yin-yang mirror. When Xiao Lingyu was in the early stage of the mysterious comprehending realm, he was able to release 4 late-stage divine monarch realm phantoms when he used the yin-yang mirror. Now that he was in the middle stage of the mysterious comprehending realm, the 4 phantoms had naturally improved a lot. After absorbing a large amount of chaotic divine power, the sacred artifact, the yin-yang mirror, suddenly shook. The 4 monsters appeared again. They were not in a hurry to attack. Instead, they roared and released their auras at the same time. For strange auras formed the 4 symbols territory. In the divine realm, once one reached the divine monarch realm, one would be able to fly freely in the sky. Once one reached the divine king realm, one would be able to unleash a domain that did not cover a large area. The 4 monsters were only in the early stage of the divine king realm. Their 4 symbols territory was a special territory. Although it could not completely suppress Qi Hongshuan's territory, it could at least prevent Xiao Lingyu from being restricted by his territory. Xiao Lingyu, who was not restricted, quickly formed the seal of primal chaos and aimed it at the revolving black lotuses around him. It was a pity that Xiao Lingyu's realm was not high enough. He could only aim his attacks, but could not lock onto them. The black lotuses moved too fast. Under Qi Hongshuan's intentional control, they could easily dodge the attacks of the seal of primal chaos. The power of their territories had canceled each other out. However, Qi Hongxian did not allow Xiao Lingyu to continue attacking. He then controlled the 8 black lotuses to shoot black poisonous arrows at Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu realized gloomily that even with the help of the divine weapon, the yin-yang mirror, he could not defeat Qi Hongxian. He could not even charge out. Brother Xiao, if you hand over the pearl now, I think we don't have to fight anymore. You are no match for me. Qi Hongshuan's voice sounded again. He sounded very proud and confident. That's right, the pearl. Xiao Lingyu suddenly had an idea. He immediately took out the pearl. Although there was only one white pearl in Xiao Lingyu's hand, it could still cast a circle of holy light on top of Xiao Lingyu's head. It covered Xiao Lingyu from head to toe. Every time the poisonous arrow pierced the white light screen, it would be like an ice cube encountering a raging fire. A large portion of it would quickly melt, and the remaining small portion could be easily dissolved by Xiao Lingyu's primal chaos real fire. In this way, Qi Hongshuan's poisonous arrows were completely useless against Xiao Lingyu. Without being attacked or restricted by his opponent's domain, Xiao Lingyu could attack the black circle. Just as Xiao Lingyu approached the black circle, the 8 black lotuses suddenly disappeared. In their place, Qi Hongxian himself stood in front of Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu's momentum was too strong. The silver moon saber in his hand struck the wrong spot, but Qi Hongxian raised his palm and steadily slapped toward his head. Xiao Lingyu could not dodge in time and could only tilt his head. Qi Hongshuan's palm quickly descended and slapped Xiao Lingyu's shoulder. Xiao Lingyu had already discovered that Qi Hongshuan's strength was not inferior to his. Now that Qi Hongshuan's strength had improved greatly, his strength was also far superior to his. Qi Hongshuan's palm directly sent Xiao Lingyu flying far away. Even that white bead's color also dimmed for a while, and it hid back into his body again. I've said it before. You're no match for me. Qi Hongshuan's lips curled into a confident and evil smile. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Xiaoling Yu again. Xiaoling Yu was not in the mood to bicker with Qi Hongxian. With a thought, 4 illusory monsters formed a row in front of him. Qi Hongxian also found it very troublesome to have 4 illusory monsters that were at the early God King level. However, with a soft shout, the black gas around him immediately disappeared and was replaced by bursts of brownish-red light. Even more surprising was that 2 goat horns had appeared on Qi Hongshuan's head. His pitch-black eyes had also become blood-red. Azura. Xiaoling Yu paled in fright. Qi Hongshuan's appearance reminded him of the god Emperor Azura in the evil Wind Valley. Brother Xiao, accept your fate. No matter what treasure you use, you will definitely die today. As Qi Hongxian spoke, thick blood vessels that looked like red pythons slithered over to him. The 4 illusory monsters could only block 4 of the blood vessels. Xiaoling Yu had to deal with the remaining blood vessels himself. Xiaoling Yu did not let the 4 illusory monsters block the 4 blood vessels. Instead, he let them charge at Qi Hongxian. The 4 illusory monsters' movements were not restricted at all. They easily passed through the blood vessels and rushed to Qi Hongshuan's side. Qi Hongxian relied on his strength and did not retreat or dodge. He allowed the 4 illusory monsters to trap him. Of course, if Qi Hongxian chose to retreat or dodge, it would give Xiaoling Yu a chance to dodge. Qi Hongxian was restrained by the 4 illusory monsters and could not move freely. However, Qi Hongxian believed that Xiaoling Yu would definitely be sealed by the blood vessels he released. Qi Hongxian knew that the 4 illusory monsters could not hold on for long. He also knew that he could hold on for a long time. Therefore, he was happy to see himself and Xiaoling Yu lose their freedom. In fact, Xiaoling Yu was surrounded by the thick blood vessels in the blink of an eye. However, Xiaoling Yu immediately took out the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron. Then, the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron transformed into the form of an 8-legged monster. The 8-legged monster was bathed in white flames. It was constantly attacked, and its strength gradually decreased. It could no longer reach a state of equilibrium with the white flames. The power of the white flames grew stronger and stronger. In a few moments, it turned into a white sun. Xiaoling Yu was very experienced in this. He directly hid inside the tubular sacred artifact, and the brilliant white flame released many white fire snakes that entangled with the blood vessels. Chapter 584. Qi Hongshuan's expression changed drastically, and he coughed up blood. Sensing that the blood vessels he had released were being severely damaged, Qi Hongxian made a prompt decision to withdraw them. Xiaoling Yu was not restricted. He immediately allowed the 8-legged monster to recover its strength, and the white fireball's power was reduced to its lowest point. He then summoned the 8-legged monster to his side and put away the yin-yang mirror. Xiaoling Yu took advantage of the fact that Qi Hongxian was distracted by the 4 monsters to speed up and escape. However, before he left, Xiaoling Yu rewarded Qi Hongxian with a primal chaos seal. If you escape, Yueru will suffer a fate worse than death. Boom! Before the primal chaos seal exploded, Qi Hongshuan's voice reached Xiaoling Yu's ears first. Even so, Xiaoling Yu still had to leave this place first. He was no match for Qi Hongxian now. Xiaoling Yu was certain that Qi Hongxian had obtained the huge, baleful heart. Now, not only did he have the body of poison, but he also had the Azura body. Although he was not as strong as the God Emperor Azura, he was definitely at the God King stage. Qi Hongxian might not be a match for the veteran God Kings in Duhu City, but any God Monarch stage cultivator, including an elite like Guan Wei, would not be able to last more than a few moves against Qi Hongxian. This defeat was not undeserved. After realizing the gap between them, Xiaoling Yu began to think of a countermeasure as the tubular saint weapon flew away. The primal chaos seal exploded beside Qi Hongxian. Even though Qi Hongxian was strong, his clothes were torn and his hair was disheveled. He looked very miserable. However, Chi Hongbin did not suffer too much damage. His face only looked a little ferocious. It was a fight that he was almost certain to win, but he did not expect it to end with him suffering a small loss. If I don't get rid of this person, there will be trouble in the future. Chi Hongxian narrowed his eyes and watched for a while. Then, he flew towards the river outside of Duhu City and landed in the river with a splash. It seemed that Chi Hongxian was at a disadvantage in this battle, but Xiao Lingyu had used almost all of his abilities to escape. In fact, Xiao Lingyu was completely at a disadvantage. If he didn't have these 3 sacred artifacts, not only would he not have been able to escape, but he would also have been beaten to death by Chi Hongxian. Since using 3 sacred artifacts would only result in him fleeing, there was only one way for Xiao Lingyu to defeat Chi Hongxian, and that was to continue improving his cultivation base. At the very least, he had to reach the peak of the late-stage chaotic Elysium enlightening realm before he could defeat Chi Hongxian. Even if Xiao Lingyu reached the late stage of chaotic mysterious enlightening realm, he was not completely confident that he could kill Chi Hongxian. After all, it would take time for him to reach the late stage of chaotic mysterious enlightening realm. During this time, Chi Hongxian might also make progress. It all depended on who made faster progress. Most importantly, Chi Hongxian could determine Xiao Lingyu's location through the poison he left in Xiao Lingyu's body. Chi Hongxian had used Yueru to threaten Xiao Lingyu, which had completely infuriated Xiao Lingyu. It seems that I can't leave in peace if I don't kill Chi Hongxian. With that thought in mind, Xiao Lingyu put away the tubular sacred artifact and turned around to head back to Duhu City. Even if Yueru was already married to Chi Hongxian, Xiao Lingyu would not care about her safety. He would not watch as Yueru was implicated because of him. Moreover, even if he had to leave, Xiao Lingyu would not leave with his tail between his legs. He had never been truly afraid of anyone since he started cultivating. Even when he faced the demon sovereign in the 3 realms, he faced him head-on. When he returned to the Wildfire's campsite in Duhu City, Xiao Lingyu went straight to his room to cultivate in seclusion without another word. Even though he hated the mental demons of being in the inverse mystic realm, he had no other choice now. Chi Hongxian also returned to Duhu City. When he sensed that Xiao Lingyu was also in the city, the corners of his mouth curled into a sinister smile. After entering the Qi family's courtyard, Chi Hongxian enjoyed the respectful gazes of the Qi family members as he walked quickly to his own courtyard. Ever since he had returned from Evil Wind Valley, the sloppy divine king of the Qi family had informed the important figures of the Qi family to treat Chi Hongxian as a divine king expert. Naturally, many of the Qi family members were not convinced at first. However, when Chi Hongxian easily defeated a few divine kings of the Qi family, they all became obedient. Even in a family, whoever's fist was harder, whoever's strength was stronger, whoever's status would be higher. Now, even the current head of the Qi family had to be courteous when he saw Chi Hongxian. Chi Hongxian enjoyed the feeling of being treated as an expert and was reluctant to part with it. Even though there were many problems with his current cultivation and his future would be extremely dangerous, he had to bite the bullet and continue on. Chi Hongxuan's courtyard was very large, even larger than the residence of the head of the Qi family. In this courtyard, there were many quiet rooms. Chi Hongxian had given a small building to Yueru as a medicine refinery. Chi Hongxian came to the medicine refinery and saw Yueru in front of a cauldron, deep in thought. "Husband, you're back." When Yueru saw Chi Hongxian come in, she immediately stood up and welcomed him with a smile. My wife, how's the concoction?" Chi Hongxian smiled as he pulled Yueru into his arms and asked. "There's only one last step that needs to be carefully considered," Yueru answered. "My wife is indeed intelligent. An ordinary alchemist like you wouldn't be able to reach this level without thousands of years of research," Chi Hongxian praised. Yueru felt a little sweet in her heart. Now that she was Chi Hongxuan's wife, she naturally cared about Chi Hongxuan's opinion and attitude. The satisfaction on Chi Hongxuan's face wasn't fake. He was very satisfied with Yueru's talent in medicine refinery. He could vaguely see the day when his wife Yuru became an alchemist grandmaster who could look down on all the alchemists in the god realm. Qi Hongxian also knew that if he wanted to make further progress, he needed an alchemist by his side. Moreover, he needed an alchemist that he could completely trust. Yueru wasn't very useful to Qi Hongxian right now. Even the medicine that Yueru was concocting, Qi Hongxian could concoct it himself. However, for the sake of the future, he needed to nurture Yueru. In the medicine refining room, Qi Hongxian accompanied Yueru for another 2 hours to help her perfect the last step of the concoction. Then, he left the medicine refining room and entered his own private quiet room alone. After entering the quiet room, Qi Hongxian very cautiously set up layers of restrictions and then sat down cross-legged. After meditating for nearly 4 hours, Qi Hongxian suddenly spread out his hands. Then, a brownish-red mist appeared in his palms. Qi Hongxian continued to exert force. The brownish-red mist also continued to surge out of his palms. However, the speed was very slow. Qi Hongxuan's body gradually trembled and sweat seeped out of his forehead. He should be doing his best to force out a lot of the brownish-red mist. This continued for nearly 3 days. Qi Hongxian, whose face was as pale as paper, finally stopped weakly. At this time, a human-shaped brownish-red mist suddenly appeared in front of him. The brownish-red mist carried an astonishing amount of evil qi. Although it looked like a human, it seemed to have lost its soul and didn't have the slightest consciousness. When Qi Hongxian was brought into the huge evil heart by the blood vessels of the evil heart, he saw this strange brownish-red mist. Because his strength wasn't high at the time, he couldn't resist the mist invading his body. However, what made him happy was that after the brownish-red mist entered his body, his strength skyrocketed countless times. Moreover, he could control the fiend's heart and fuse it with his own heart. Although his strength had soared, Qi Hongxian was a shrewd person. He could guess that while the mist had brought him a great improvement, it would also have unpredictable disadvantages. Therefore, after returning from Evil Wind Valley, he tried to force the mist out of his body. If he couldn't force it out, he would have to think carefully. To Qi Hongxuan's relief, although he had put in a lot of effort last time, he had succeeded in forcing the human-shaped mist out of his body. However, after the human-shaped mist left his body, his strength had dropped too much. Moreover, the evil heart had become restless, as if it wanted to leave him. Qi Hongxian couldn't bear to part with this opportunity, so he absorbed the human-shaped mist back into his body. Absorbing the human-shaped mist was very easy. As long as he wanted to, he could do it easily. Among the cultivators of the cultivation world, no matter if they were gold core stage cultivators of the cultivation world or top powerhouses of the deity world, how many people would be willing to part with a great improvement? Qi Hongxian knew that there was something wrong with this human-shaped mist. It might be related to the god emperor stage, Azura. Therefore, whenever he had time, he would try to force it out of his body and study it carefully. Unfortunately, his vision was too low. Even though he had read many ancient books and jade slips about the Azura clan and the cultivation of evil qi, he couldn't see through this mist. I know there's something wrong with you, but if you want to secretly plot against me, why don't we have an open and honest talk? Perhaps this will be beneficial to both of us, and the benefits will be even greater. Qi Hongxian tried to communicate with the human-shaped mist. After waiting for a long time, the human-shaped mist didn't say anything. Qi Hongxian talked to himself for a long time. The human-shaped mist seemed to have lost its consciousness. It didn't have the slightest intention of communicating with Qi Hongxian. In the end, Qi Hongxian lost his patience and gave up. With a thought, his palm emitted a suction force towards the humanoid mist. The humanoid mist drilled into his body. Then, he closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Qi Hongxian, who was in a state of cultivation, sometimes flashed with black light, sometimes flashed with red light. What he didn't even notice was that 2 Azura horns had appeared on his head, and behind him, there was an almost transparent human-shaped shadow. Shaolin Yu had been in closed-door cultivation for less than 2 years when she received another wedding invitation. Opening the invitation, Xiao Yu smiled bitterly. Chapter 585. If I'm not busy tomorrow, I'll make up for it with the fourth watch. Thank you for your support and understanding. Chapter 586. As Miss Jing's old friends, Xiong Meng, Zhang Hai, and the others also received the wedding invitations. However, like Xiao Yu, they couldn't feel happy even though their friends were about to get married. It wasn't that Xiao Yu and the others had any thoughts about Miss Jing, but they felt that there was one less person they could trust around them. This made them feel uncomfortable, and it made Xiong Meng and the others feel a little lost. Guan Yiwei and Miss Jing's wedding was held 3 months after the invitations were sent out. The invited guests gathered at the open-air wedding venue in the Guan family's courtyard. Xiao Yu came and sat at the same table as Xiong Meng and the other cultivators from Wildfire. Qi Hongxian and Yueru's arrival didn't surprise Xiao Yu. After all, they had also invited Guan Yiwei and Miss Jing to their wedding last time. What surprised Xiao Yu was that Qi Hongxian and Yueru came over to say hello and then sat at the same table as Xiao Yu. Perhaps it was because they were too close, or perhaps Qi Hongxian deliberately revealed his aura, but Xiao Yu could feel that Qi Hongshuan's strength had increased again. This made his heart sink even more. If he still couldn't defeat Qi Hongxian after reaching the peak of the late stage of arcane enlightenment, would he have to attempt the 7th revolution of the 9-revolution chaos formula? Xiao Yu didn't stay at the 6th revolution for long. Even if he reached the peak of the late stage of arcane enlightenment, he still needed to prepare a lot of materials and methods to attempt the 7th revolution. This preparation process would definitely take a long time. How has Brother Xiao been recently? Yueru asked with concern after sitting down. Very good. How about you? Xiao Yu pretended to be relaxed and smiled. I'm also very good. Fu, Hongxian is very good to me. I'm already an intermediate alchemist, Yueru said with a happy expression. When Qi Hongxian and Yu came in, Xiao Yu saw that the two of them were holding hands. They looked like a loving couple. I already said that Yueru won't suffer any grievances in the Qi family. Brother Xiao, don't worry. Qi Hongxian interrupted, completely forgetting that he had threatened Xiao Yu with Yueru. I'm not worried about Yueru, but I'm worried about Brother Qi. At this point, Xiao Yu narrowed his eyes and smiled. He continued, Brother Qi's body has a strange aura, and there's also a dark purple color on his glabella. I'm afraid there will be trouble. Qi Hongshuan's face sank at first, but then his expression returned to normal. He said indifferently, Heaven helps the worthy. Since I can reach this point, I believe I can go even further in the future. However, I still have to thank Brother Xiao for reminding me. If disaster really befalls me, I also have a way to avoid it. Xiao Yu nodded calmly and didn't say anything else. He minded his own business and drank the fine wine provided by the Qi family. Naturally, Yu did not understand what Xiao Yu and Qi Hongxian were talking about. Therefore, she obediently remained silent. She knew that Xiao Yu and Qi Hongxian had a complicated relationship, but she did not know who she should help. After all, one of them was the man who had once made her fall in love with him, while the other was the man who had married her through the wedding ceremony. Miss Jing and Guan Yiwei's wedding was similar to Yueru and Qi Hongshuan's wedding. They also bowed to heaven and earth, paid respects to their elders, and the newlyweds bowed to each other. Then, the ceremony was announced. However, just as the newlyweds were smiling and the guests were giving their blessings, something unexpected happened. Just as the Guan family's head, who was presiding over the wedding, had the newlyweds start bowing to heaven and earth, 3 unknown cultivators suddenly descended from the sky. Today was the Guan family's big day, so the Guan family security was tighter than usual, but these 3 people still descended from the sky of the Guan family's courtyard. Among the 3 people, one of them was a girl who looked to be 15 or 16 years old. She wore a white gauze dress and stood on a 5-color cloud. Her skin was fresh and red, like the morning sun reflecting on the snow. Although the woman looked young, she had a stern and dignified expression on her face. Behind the girl, there were two armored cultivators holding simple large sabers. When Xiaoling Yu saw the three people, he was stunned at first glance. When he looked carefully at the girl, he immediately felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The girl's appearance was exactly the same as the Jiang Lanyue hidden in the depths of Xiaoling Yu's memory. However, her temperament seemed to have changed greatly. Dongfang Jing, how dare you? The girl slowly walked to the wedding stage and said coldly, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into my Guan family?" A Guan family's divine monarch cultivator stepped forward to stop them. "Scram!" The girl shouted softly, and with a light wave of her sleeve, the Guan family's divine monarch cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards, knocking over many tables. The intruder actually made a move in the Guan family's courtyard. One could imagine how angry the other Guan family members were. They all rushed over. "Stop!" The Guan family's divine king shouted from the stage. All the Guan family members resentfully stopped and did not move forward. "Fellow Taoist, are you acquainted with my daughter-in-law?" The Guan family's divine king asked. What made the Guan family's divine king embarrassed was that the girl did not pay attention to her words. Instead, she said to Miss Jing, "Dongfang Jing, others may not know your identity, but don't you know it yourself? You're the only child left in your clan, and now that you're under the protection of my family Jiang, you actually went out on your own and even wanted to get married. Have you considered for your clan, for my family Jiang?" Miss Jing looked a little terrified on the stage, and a complicated expression of guilt, self-blame, and hesitation appeared on her face. "Fortunately, I arrived in time. Your mistakes and willfulness end here." After the girl said that, she waved her hand and sent out a five-colored radiance to envelop Miss Jing. Strangely, although the Guan family's divine king was beside her, she did not make a move to stop her. Guan Yiwei made a move to stop her, but unfortunately, he was bounced back by the five-colored radiance. The five-colored radiance enveloped Miss Jing's entire body, and then her body slowly floated up. Miss Jing, who was enveloped by the five-colored radiance, shook her head apologetically at Guan Yiwei. She still wanted to say something, but unfortunately, no one could hear it. Guan Yiwei was very excited, but he was firmly held back by his mother. Guan Yiwei could guess that the person who came was not simple. Otherwise, his mother would not have just sat by and watched. On the day of the wedding, the bride was snatched away. Any clan would feel that they had lost face and would not agree so easily. The girl did not dawdle in the Guan family's courtyard. The five-colored cloud under her feet appeared again, and she and the two guards rose up together. The five-colored cloud was slow at first, but after 2 breaths of time, it suddenly sped up and soared into the sky. Only then did Xiaoling Yu come back to his senses. He couldn't help but shout at the sky, "Jiang Lanyue!" Unfortunately, the five-colored cloud had already disappeared into the night sky. The girl, who was already in the sky, suddenly frowned and asked the guards behind her, "Did anyone call my name just now?" One of the guards said with a flattering smile, "Miss you. How could anyone recognize you in such a remote place?" The girl nodded and said, "I rarely move around in the God realm. Apart from my clan, there are not many people who can recognize me. I might have misheard." The other guard said flatteringly, "With Miss Yu's status, even if someone recognized you, how could they call you by your name?" The girl nodded silently and didn't say anything else. Xiaoling Yu looked up at the night sky and felt a little puzzled. Is she really Jiang Lanyue? She should have heard my call just now, right? A good wedding had turned into bubbles just like that. The guests were all disappointed, and the Guan family was also depressed. "Everyone, please go back. I apologize for the lack of hospitality today." The Guan family head apologized to everyone. Then he said to the God King of Women, "Auntie, could that girl be someone from the family Jiang?" The God King of Matron watched as the guests left. She said in a deep voice, "Although I can't be completely sure, there's an 80 to 90% chance that it's true. Those 2 guards are dressed exactly the same as the guards of the Jiang family. That woman's bearing and the 5-color divine light she produced also proved that her origins are extraordinary. The Guan family head frowned and said, "If she's someone from the family Jiang, wouldn't we be in big trouble?" The God King of Women shook her head and said, "Our Guan family isn't worth the trouble of the family Jiang." However, Guanwei was not convinced and said, "Even if it's the family Jiang, isn't it a little too overbearing and rude to snatch the bride away at someone else's wedding?" The God King of Women looked at her son and said, "The God realm has always been like this. If our Guan family was also one of the top families, the family Jiang might have some scruples about saving face. Unfortunately, we are too insignificant to the family Jiang. They don't need to care about our face at all." Guanwei did not give up and said, "One day, I will definitely go to the family Jiang and snatch Jinger back." The God King of Women smiled and said, "It's good to have ambition, but you must act according to your ability. Even if you cultivate to the God Emperor level, it won't be easy to go to the family Jiang to snatch Jinger back." Jinger must have expected that someone would come to take her back, so she agreed to marry you so early. Plus, her expression when she left just now is enough to prove that she does have some feelings for you. It's a pity that the family Jiang is a gap that we can't cross. Senior Xiao, we should go now. Xiao Lingyu was still looking at the night sky in a daze when Xiong Meng reminded him in a low voice. Haha, Brother Xiao must have been attracted by the beauty of that woman from the family Jiang. However, Brother Xiao should think twice. Not to mention that woman's status in the family Jiang is definitely not ordinary. Her cultivation is at the God King stage, and it's hard for ordinary cultivators to get close to her. Qi Hongxian smiled and said to Xiao Lingyu. He seemed to be looking down on her. Although she was already Qi Hongshuan's wife, Yueru felt a little strange when he heard this. The woman had just said that she was from the family Jiang, and she looked exactly like Jiang Lanyue. Therefore, he was sure that she was Jiang Lanyue. Although he did not get to talk to her, seeing Jiang Lanyue again made him excited and happy. After leaving the mansion, Qi Hongxian suddenly said to Xiao Lingyu, "I will host a banquet in my courtyard tomorrow night to thank Brother Xiao for taking care of Yueru in the past. Brother Xiao, please take the time to attend the banquet tomorrow night." Chapter 587. The Qi family and Qi Hongxian did not do anything to Xiao Lingyu when he went to the Qi family's wedding. There were too many people present at that time, but Xiao Lingyu felt that Qi Hongxian would most likely do something to him now that he was invited to the wedding. Qi Hongxian did not want to waste any more time. He seemed to have sensed Xiao Lingyu's improvement. He was confident that he could kill Xiao Lingyu, but if he waited any longer, it would be hard to say. When Qi Hongxian and Xiao Lingyu traveled from the Linggu Valley to Kuan City, Xiao Lingyu was only at the heavenly god stage. However, he was now able to face a god king stage cultivator without losing his life. Qi Hongxian felt that Xiao Lingyu's improvement was too fast. He could not give Xiao Lingyu any more time. Although Qi Hongshuan's strength had increased by leaps and bounds, it would take a long time for him to make further progress. More importantly, Qi Hongxian did not know when a human-shaped fog in his body would go wrong. However, he knew that the white bead was very effective in suppressing the human-shaped fog and the excessive yin energy in his body. Therefore, Qi Hongxian had to get the white bead as soon as possible to get rid of Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu already had a grudge against the Qi family. Qi Hongxian felt that the Qi family would not stop him from killing Xiao Lingyu. They might even help him. Xiao Lingyu did not have a strong background in Du City. Even if he died in the Qi family's hands, as long as the Qi family did not accept it, no one would pursue the matter. "I will be on time for the wedding tomorrow," Xiao Lingyu replied and walked towards the entrance of Wildfire's campsite. That guy is obviously up to no good. The Qi family is like a tiger's den. I don't think Senior Xiao should go. Xiong Meng said to Xiao Lingyu when he returned to his room in the campsite. Haha, what will come. Over the years, I have been to many dangerous places. I have also seen many dangerous things and dangerous people. This time, they may not be able to do anything to me. Xiao Lingyu shook her head and smiled. Then, she went into her room and began to adjust her condition. Originally, He wanted to break through to the peak of the late-stage primal chaos realm before facing Qi Hongxian. However, while he was improving, how could Qi Hongxian remain stagnant? Since Qi Hongxian had issued an invitation, Xiao Lingyu did not feel that he had any reason to refuse. Previously, he had been able to take advantage of Qi Hongshuan's current strength and leave without knowing anything about it. This time, even if Qi Hongxian had set up a banquet in the Qi family, it would not be easy for him to kill Xiao Lingyu. The next night, Xiao Lingyu stepped into the hazy night and arrived at the Qi residence. Qi Hongxian must have informed the guards at the entrance of the Qi residence. Not only did the guards not stop Xiao Lingyu, they even enthusiastically escorted him to the large courtyard where Qi Hongxian and Yueru resided. Qi Hongxian welcomed Xiao Lingyu into the courtyard and then led him to the living room on the first floor of the attic. At this time, the table in the middle of the living room was filled with all kinds of delicacies and bottles of fine wine. Yueru was also present. She was very happy, as if she were a young daughter-in-law receiving a guest from her family. When the banquet began, there were only 3 people at the table. Although Yueru was very attentive, she was unfortunately not the main character of the night. Gradually, under Qi Hongshuan's intentional guidance, he and Xiao Lingyu began to compete in drinking. Xiao Lingyu knew that Qi Hongshuan's alcohol tolerance was very high. He guessed that Qi Hongxian was not affected by the strength of the wine and the divine power in the wine. However, he also knew that from the beginning of this drinking competition, he and Qi Hongxian had already begun to fight. Since they had already begun to fight, Xiao Lingyu naturally had no reason to back down. As long as Qi Hongxian raised his cup, he would not back down. Although Yueru had already sensed that the atmosphere was not right, she also tried her best to dissuade them. However, this was a competition between men. Once it began, it would get out of hand. The drinking competition lasted until midnight. Xiao Lingyu felt that he could not hold on any longer. Although primal chaos power could contain the alcohol and the wine, it was not limitless. Since Qi Hongxian had designed this drinking competition, he naturally had full confidence that he would not lose this step. However, he did not know how much Xiao Lingyu could drink. Now that Xiao Lingyu could not hold on for much longer, Qi Hongxian was almost at his limit. Qi Hongxian could drink for 2 reasons. Firstly, it was because of his special constitution. The poison in his body could greatly suppress the strength of the wine to a certain extent. Secondly, his murderous heart could contain a lot of wine. However, these 2 things were not without a limit. When the divine power of chaos could no longer contain any more wine, Xiao Lingyu could only continue to drink the wine to take effect on his body. Fortunately, Xiao Lingyu also had a body of poison. The poison could suppress the strength of the wine. Furthermore, his bloodline was very high, so it could also reduce the effects of the wine on his body. The strength of the wine did not only affect the body, but also the soul. Fortunately for Xiao Lingyu, the grayish-black metal piece hidden in the depths of his soul could absorb the strength of the wine and prevent Xiao Lingyu's soul from being affected. As a result, although Xiao Lingyu's face was flushed due to the effects of the wine, he was not drunk at all. At the same time, Xiao Lingyu created a whirlpool of divine power in his dantian. He used the primordial fire to speed up the refinement of the divine power in the wine. In any case, his cultivation level had increased a lot recently. However, his cultivation level had not increased much. The divine power in the wine could help him increase his cultivation level. It would definitely not cause his body to explode. If the strength of the wine could be used, this drinking competition would be meaningful and effective. After drinking for a while, Qi Hongshuan's expression began to change. He could definitely drink more than Xiao Lingyu, but not by much. At this time, Qi Hongxian discovered that it was impossible for him to gain a big advantage in the drinking contest. If they continued to drink, neither of them would have an easy time. Haha, it's great to drink with Brother Xiao today. Great. Qi Hongxian stood up with a laugh and said, Brother Xiao is a magnanimous person. Hongxian admits defeat. I've drunk too much. I'm sure Brother Xiao is also thirsty. Let's drink some tea. Very good. Xiao Lingyu replied indifferently. Qi Hongxian said to Yu, "Wife, go refine a pot of fragrant tea for us." Yu saw that the drinking competition was over and felt a lot more relaxed. She immediately went to the small building where she refined medicine. Xiaoling knew that Qi Hongxian deliberately sent Yu away. The more dangerous drinking competition was probably about to begin. "Brother Xiao, can't we give up the bead?" After Yu left, Qi Hongxian asked directly. "If we could give it up, we would have done so long ago." Xiaoling shook his head. "The two of us aren't mediocre and incompetent people. If we can join forces, then we'll be able to go anywhere in the world in the future, and we'll be able to choose any treasures we want. So why does Brother Xiao care about this temporary loss?" Qi Hongxian was unwilling to give up as he persuaded. "Join forces with you? Ha!" Xiaoling just smiled. Sigh. Qi Hongxian sighed heavily and said, "Then, Brother Xiao, are you willing to fight me in one move?" Xiaoling frowned slightly and then nodded. He knew that the move Qi Hongxian was referring to was definitely Qi Hongshuan's most powerful move. Even if he didn't agree to this agreement, once they fought, Qi Hongxian would still use his most powerful move. The previous fight told Xiaoling that he wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand in a normal competition of moves. So, there was no disadvantage for him to fight in one move. When Qi Hongxian heard Xiaoling agree to his proposal, the corners of his mouth curled up into an evil smile. At this time, the two of them had already reached the second floor of the pavilion. They sat opposite each other with only an ordinary wooden table between them. "I won't bully you in other ways. Let's compete in strength." As soon as Qi Hongxian finished speaking, he pushed both his palms towards Xiaoling. Xiaoling also raised his palms, and the two's forepalms instantly pressed together. However, the two of them restrained their power very tightly. Even if their palms met like this, not much of their aura leaked out. Since it was a competition of strength, they had to use the power in their bodies sparingly. So, they didn't let their power leak out. However, Qi Hongxian was a shrewd person. How could it be as simple as competing in strength with Xiaoling? Not long after their palms met, Xiaoling could already feel that the power he released to resist Qi Hongshuan's palm was flowing into Qi Hongshuan's palm. It was a good thing for Xiaoling that his power had invaded his opponent's body. However, what surprised him was that his power of chaos had just flowed through his opponent's meridians and surged uncontrollably into his opponent's heart. Then, he could no longer feel the existence of that part of his power. Xiaoling knew that Qi Hongshuan's heart was a murderous heart. It definitely wouldn't have a problem containing his power of chaos. However, in this way, Qi Hongxian wouldn't have to release his power to resist Xiaoling's attack. Xiaoling's power consumption was many times greater than his, so there was no doubt that they would be competing in strength. No wonder this guy wants to compete in strength with me. It turns out that he has nothing to fear. After realizing that he had been tricked, Xiaoling naturally wanted to withdraw his palms. Unfortunately, Qi Hongshuan's palm released a suction force that made it difficult for him to withdraw his palms. In order to resist Qi Hongshuan's attack, he had to continue releasing his power. At this time, most of Xiaoling's power was still forming a whirlpool in his dantian to suppress and convert the wine he had just drunk. This greatly reduced the amount of time he could hold on. "You can suck mine, but I can't. I can't suck yours." Xiaoling made up his mind. He made the whirlpool in his dantian rotate faster, and his palm released a suction force as well. Not long after, the two of them used one palm to push and the other to release a suction force. As they competed in strength, they continuously poured their power into each other's body. Qi Hongxian seemed to have expected this situation. He had a smile on his face and thought to himself, "You can temporarily suppress my poison for a short period of time, but can you also control the murderous energy?" In reality, Xiaoling didn't have much of a problem suppressing Qi Hongshuan's poison. However, after the murderous energy invaded his body, it really caused him a lot of trouble. Chapter 588. Xiaoling's chaotic divine power had a demonic nature, which was similar to the attribute of the evil aura. Thus, to a certain extent, it was able to guide and absorb the evil aura. Qi Hongshuan's power, which had invaded Shaolin Yu's body, was guided into Shaolin Yu's dantian. Then, it was thrown into the energy vortex. Chaotic divine power was the origin of divine power and was extremely inclusive. Although the evil aura was special and of a high level, it was still slightly inferior to chaotic divine power. In this way, Shaolin Yu could easily control Qi Hongshuan's power. Although Qi Hongxian could feel the existence of the power he had released, he could not take it back, nor could he make it wreak havoc in Shaolin Yu's body. At this point, the two of them could be considered to be competing in terms of power. Shaolin Yu could use the energy vortex in her dantian to refine Qi Hongshuan's power into chaotic divine power. However, Qi Hongshuan's murderous heart could only contain Shaolin Yu's chaotic divine power and could not convert it into evil aura. If this continued, Shaolin Yu could completely reverse the situation and gain the upper hand in this competition of power. Qi Hongxian suddenly discovered that his original determination to win had turned out to be lifting a stone to hit his own foot. "I'd like to see how much you can convert." Qi Hongxian was also a proud person. Since he had said that victory would be decided in one move, and that victory would be decided in a competition of power, he would not easily admit defeat. He began to increase the output of his power, causing the energy vortex in Shaolin Yu's dantian to be unable to continue its steady conversion. Indeed, the quality of Qi Hongshuan's power was not as good as Shaolin Yu's, but the depth of his power was far greater than Shaolin Yu's. When he used his full power, his murderous heart continuously released waves of pure evil aura, which flooded Shaolin Yu's body like a flood. If not for Shaolin Yu's thick and tough veins, just the impact of this murderous aura alone would have been enough to cause his body to explode. The surging murderous energy flowed through Shaolin Yu's meridians and into his dantian. Then, it was sucked into the energy whirlpool, causing the energy whirlpool to expand. The chaotic divine infant's face was grim. It constantly formed hand seals with its two tiny hands as it spat out chaotic true fire. Even though it had already done its best, the energy vortex gradually showed signs of collapsing. Oof. I was wondering how powerful he was. Isn't he almost unable to hold on? Qi Hongxian thought proudly in his heart. Seeing that the surging fiendish energy was about to cause the energy vortex to explode, the image of Shaolin Yu exploding and dying appeared in Qi Hongshuan's mind. The chaotic divine infant, who had its eyes closed to cast a spell, suddenly shouted and moved the 6 lotuses of various colors hovering above its head to the energy vortex. The 6 lotuses, which were originally revolving around each other at a very slow speed, began to spin faster and faster. At the same time, they cast a strange light. At this moment, Shaolin Yu also had the white bead appear in the center of the circle formed by the 6 lotuses with a thought. It also cast a holy white light on the energy vortex below. Under the combined efforts of the 6 lotuses and the white bead, the energy vortex miraculously gradually stabilized. The chaotic true fire could still pass through the layers of light and surge into the energy vortex, helping the chaotic divine power to transform the murderous energy. The originally violent and ruthless murderous energy also became docile under the penetration of the white light cast by the white bead. How can this be? Qi Hongshuan's smugness turned into surprise. The murderous energy contained in Qi Hongshuan's fiend heart was extremely vast. However, after it surged into Shaolin Yu's body, it would be transformed into chaotic divine power for Shaolin Yu's use. Although the transformation speed was not very fast, it could greatly reduce the speed at which Shaolin Yu's power was depleted. Qi Hongxian was caught in a dilemma. It was clearly disadvantageous for him to continue competing in terms of power, but if he stopped, it would be equivalent to admitting defeat. Most importantly, the suction force released by Shaolin Yu's palm was just as powerful. It would not be easy for Qi Hongxian to stop even if he wanted to. Even if Qi Hongxian forced himself to stop, he would definitely fall into a passive position in the battle that followed. After all, the moment he stopped, Xiao Yu would definitely take advantage of the situation and attack. The moment Qi Hongxian stopped, he would probably be severely injured. Qi Hongxian himself did not know how much murderous energy there was in the fiend heart. He only knew that it was a lot, so much that it was impossible to calculate. Since the murderous energy in the fiend heart is so vast, I'll let him continue to absorb it. When his power surpasses the soul realm, his body will explode and he will die. Thinking of this, Qi Hongxian did not stop. Instead, he braced himself and persisted. Although Xiao Yu was also continuously releasing power, he did not dare to release it too fiercely. This was because he had to leave enough chaotic divine power to control and transform the murderous energy. Without a strong output, it would be very difficult for him to hurt Qi Hongxian. It would also inevitably cause his power to continue to expand. Xiao Yu did not dare to release too much power, but Qi Hongxian did his best to release the murderous energy. If it were not for the fact that his meridians were limited and his body could not withstand the impact of the murderous energy, he would definitely continue to increase the output of the murderous energy. The situation was in a deadlock for a while. It seemed that there would not be a result in a short period of time. Qi Hongxian could not help but regret his previous decision. He actually had many ways to deal with Xiao Yu. However, in order to easily resolve this battle, he had thought that he was clever and chose to compete in power. He thought that he had set a trap for Xiao Yu. He never thought that Xiao Yu would be able to turn the situation around. After a full 2 hours, Qi Hongxian was still exchanging blows with Xiao Yu. Meanwhile, Yueru, who had gone out to refine fragrant tea, returned. When she did not see Xiao Yu and Qi Hongxian on the first floor, Yueru worriedly went up to the second floor. When she saw the situation on the second floor, Yueru's heart sank to the bottom. Her hand trembled, and the teapot in her hand fell to the ground. Fortunately, the teapot was of good quality and did not shatter. "All of you stop." Yueru's eyes were filled with tears as she anxiously called out. In Yueru's heart, this was the situation that she was most worried about. Unfortunately, in this situation, Xiao Yu and Qi Hongxian could not stop. If they stopped, they might face death. This was not a sparring match, but a battle to the death. "Husband, stop first. You promised me before that you would not fight with Big Brother Xiao again. Why, have you forgotten?" Yueru walked to Qi Hongxuan's side and pleaded. Qi Hongxian did not answer. Yueru walked to Xiao Yu again and said, "Big Brother Xiao, for little sister's sake, please stop first. If you continue fighting like this, what should I do?" Woo-woo. Xiao Yu did not answer. At this juncture of life and death, he could not be soft-hearted at all. In terms of feelings, Yueru's feelings for Xiao Yu were naturally deeper. However, she was now Qi Hongxuan's wife, and Qi Hongxian usually treated her very well. Not to mention that she was powerless to help anyone now. Even if she could help change the overall situation, she did not know who to help. "Fine. Since you two insist on fighting to the death, then kill me first." Yueru saw that her persuasion was ineffective, and in her sorrow and despair, she actually stretched out her hands and placed her palms on Xiao Yu and Qi Hongxuan's palms. Originally, her palms were facing each other, but in an instant, 6 palms were pressed together. Yueru wanted to die at this moment, so she naturally would not use her power to deal with anyone. She also used her palms to release a suction force, wanting to draw Xiao Yu and Qi Hongxuan's power to shock herself to death. Xiao Yu was not the one who exerted a lot of his power, so he was able to restrain his power very tightly so that Yueru would not be able to absorb any of it. After all, Yueru was too weak and the suction force she exerted was not very strong. However, Qi Hongxian wanted to use the murderous aura energy to make Xiao Yu explode. His power output was very large and fast, so even he could not control the amount of murderous aura energy he released. Yueru could not avoid absorbing some of the murderous aura energy into her body. Fortunately, Qi Hongxian had never thought of killing Yueru. His kindness to Yueru was not completely fake, and he needed someone like Yueru by his side in the future. Therefore, he immediately slowed down the output of murderous aura energy to increase the degree of his control over his power and prevent too much murderous aura energy from entering Yueru's body. However, after this continued for a while, Qi Hongxian realized that the pressure in Shaolin Yu's dantian had decreased a lot because he had slowed down the output of murderous aura energy. Shaolin Yu's divine infant, the 6 lotus flowers, and the white bead could already control the situation very calmly. His slow output was not harmful to Shaolin Yu at all. It was only beneficial. Qi Hongxian hurriedly shouted at Yueru, "Go away! You'll kill me if you do this." Yueru's ability was weak, so she could not see how complicated the situation was. She said stubbornly, "If you don't stop, I won't let go." Qi Hongxian was furious, and his face became ferocious. He said hatefully, "You're my wife, but you're not on my side. You're still thinking about this guy. Then die with him." After that, Qi Hongxian no longer cared about Yueru. He once again poured out all the murderous aura energy. "Yueru, go away quickly. Our battle has nothing to do with you. You don't have to die for nothing." Shaolin Yu could not help but persuade her. "If you don't stop, I won't let go." Yueru replied stubbornly. If this continued, Yueru's body would definitely be corroded by the murderous aura. She could explode at any time. Shaolin Yu could not help but hesitate. Should he stop first? However, his strength was weaker than Qi Hongxuan's. If he stopped first, and Qi Hongxian took the opportunity to attack, he might not even have the chance to hide in the 8-legged Tai Chi cauldron. After thinking about it, Shaolin Yu could not find a way to have the best of both worlds. He could only split a portion of his power and slowly and gently enter Yueru's body to help Yueru wrap up the murderous aura. However, Yueru did not have a strong body like Shaolin Yu and Qi Hongxian. Her weak meridians could not withstand the invasion of the murderous aura energy at all. Chapter 589. What confused Shaolin Yu was that Yueru's body was very weak. She should not have been able to withstand the impact of the murderous aura. However, after the murderous aura entered her body, it only sank into her flesh and constantly corroded and changed her bloodline. It did not cause her body to explode. Afterwards, Shaolin Yu thought of a reason. Yueru wanted to die so badly that she did not take the initiative to resist the murderous aura. She even accepted the murderous aura with her heart. That was why the murderous aura could successfully invade her flesh and blood without exploding because of her resistance. However, that was only one of the reasons. The more important reason was that although the murderous aura had surged out from Qi Hongxuan's body, it had not been refined by Qi Hongxian. The reason why Qi Hongxian could release it was because he controlled the murderous heart. Right now, the murderous aura that had surged out from Qi Hongxuan's body actually belonged to the murderous heart. The pure murderous aura was ownerless. If the murderous aura had an owner, it would only cause Yueru's body to explode in an instant. It would not fuse with Yueru's flesh and blood. Shaolin Yu could only silently withdraw his chaotic divine force when he sensed Yueru's bloodline changing. He was powerless to change the situation right now, even if he was willing to put himself in a passive position. It was also because of Yueru's participation that the murderous aura released by Qi Hongxian had been diverted. The pressure on Shaolin Yu had also decreased significantly. The price was that Yueru would be corroded by the murderous aura and gradually lose her mind. Even if she did not die in the end, she would probably become a bloodthirsty and vicious person like the murderous aura. Shaolin Yu could not bear to see such a kind and pure girl suffer such a fate. After thinking about it, he still used the strength of his soul, which was countless times more powerful than Yueru's, to protect the consciousness and memories in the depths of Yueru's soul. Shaolin Yu could do this very easily, and Qi Hongxian did not try to stop him. Although her memories had been sealed, Shaolin Yu could not stop Yueru's body from transforming. He could not stop the murderous aura from corroding and changing Yueru's divine infant and soul. Not only was Yueru's body in great pain, but her divine infant and soul were the same. She fainted time and time again, but she was forced to wake up again and again because of the pain. Only then did Qi Hongxian realize the severity of the problem. He felt that if he did not stop releasing the murderous aura, all the benefits he had received before would probably be transferred to Yueru. However, if he stopped, Shaolin Yu would definitely gain the upper hand and even severely injure him. Qi Hongxian hesitated until dawn, but he still did not make a decision. The murderous aura in the heart of the murderous aura was truly enormous. It had been drained so quickly, yet it showed no signs of drying up even after such a long time. Now, the amount of murderous aura that constantly poured into Shaolin Yu's body was less than a fifth of what it had been at its peak. It was easy to imagine just how much murderous aura Yueru had absorbed during this time. Yueru's soul had already become a baneful soul, and her divine infant had become a baneful infant. Her body had become a baneful body a long time ago. She had become a bottomless vessel for the murderous aura. Qi Hongxian had not expected that a weak cultivator like Yueru would be able to contain so much murderous aura. He had originally thought that Yueru would not be able to hold on for long before her body exploded. However, the truth was often shocking. The impact of the murderous aura on Shaolin Yu had decreased. Qi Hongxian would be too foolish to continue competing with Shaolin Yu. He had no choice but to stop releasing the murderous aura. The price of stopping was much greater than Qi Hongxian had imagined. His sudden stop caused the heart of the murderous aura to seal itself, which had lost too much energy. Without the support of the murderous aura and the heart of the murderous aura, Qi Hongxuan's strength plummeted. Shaolin Yu had been preparing for this for a long time. She had been accumulating her strength for a long time. Naturally, her attack was as powerful as a thunderbolt. Shaolin Yu had used the demonic nascent soul palm that she had not used in a long time. This was a demonic technique that could penetrate the body's defenses and directly affect the opponent's soul and divine infant. It was extremely powerful. The demonic palms that filled the sky frantically pounced on Qi Hongxian. At this moment, Qi Hongxian, who had not recovered from his weakened state, was unable to dodge at all. When the demonic palms all landed on him, he continuously spat out blood. His life force was forced out of his body. The palms quickly disappeared, and Qi Hongxian fell to the ground weakly. His aura was wild and violent, and his life force essence was rapidly draining away. Qi Hongxian knew that he was definitely going to die today. His opponent was in excellent condition, and he had already lost the ability to resist. Without waiting for Shaolin Yu to attack again, Qi Hongxian, who was in despair, gathered the last of his strength and removed the protection and restriction he had set up around the pavilion. Then, his aura caused the entire pavilion to collapse. Qi Hongxian was notifying the Qi family experts that something had happened here. He wanted them to come and kill Shaolin Yu. If it wasn't for his overconfidence, if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't want to reveal too much in front of the Qi clan, he could have joined forces with the Qi clan's experts to kill Shaolin Yu. However, if he really did that, Shaolin Yu would definitely be alerted and would most likely escape. Qi Hongxian had seen Shaolin Yu's methods before. He felt that using a trick to kill Shaolin Yu was more feasible than joining forces with the Qi family experts. Shaolin Yu naturally knew Qi Hongxuan's intention of collapsing the pavilion. He did not give Qi Hongxian another chance. With a palm strike, he shattered Qi Hongxuan's head and soul. Then, he destroyed Qi Hongxuan's nascent soul and put away his corpse. He wanted to walk away, but Shaolin Yu still carried Yueru's body and took out his tube-shaped sacred artifact. Although the Qi family members were alerted to the situation, their reaction was not very fast. After all, they did not expect such a situation to happen in their own courtyard. By the time the sloppy divine king flew out of his cultivation room, he could only see a golden light shoot into the sky. The Qi family patriarch also flew into the sky in a panic and said to the sloppy divine king, "Hongxuan's soul jade tablet has shattered." The sloppy divine king's expression changed drastically. He immediately chased in the direction the golden light had disappeared. Although there was a rule in Duhu City that only divine kings had the right to fly in the city lord's mansion would not send a divine king to deal with this matter. Moreover, Xiaoling Yu's sacred artifact was too fast. They could not stop it in time. The sloppy divine king was also very fast, but he was not faster than the sacred artifact. After all, the sacred artifact had a time limit to increase its speed. After flying out of Duhu City, Xiaoling Yu had the tube-shaped sacred artifact fly towards the floating Kakin mountain range. After a long while it stopped. Xiaoling Yu casually found an abandoned cave and put away the tube-shaped sacred artifact. She then sealed the entrance of the cave and put Yueru's body down. Yueru was still unconscious. Xiaoling Yu checked her and found that apart from the fact that Yueru had undergone a complete mutation, there were no other major problems. However, Yueru's body contained too much murderous energy. With her cultivation level, she was unable to control it. When she woke up, it would not be long before her body was in danger of exploding again. After thinking about it, Xiaoling Yu took out Qi Hongshuan's body. Just as Xiaoling Yu was about to cut open Qi Hongshuan's chest and take out his murderous heart, a brownish-red human-shaped fog suddenly surged out from Qi Hongshuan's body. Xiaoling Yu was startled and took a few steps back. It wasn't until he found that the human-shaped fog was very quiet and didn't have the slightest intention to attack him. It also didn't leak out the slightest bit of consciousness that he felt relieved. Xiaoling Yu took a closer look and found that there was a murderous heart that was almost solid at the chest of the human-shaped fog. When he looked at Qi Hongshin again, Xiaoling Yu was shocked again because Qi Hongshuan's body had already turned into a pile of dust. When Xiaoling Yu shifted his gaze from the pile of dust, the human-shaped fog carried the murderous heart and slowly floated towards Yueru. Xiaoling Yu hesitated for a moment, but still decided not to stop it. He could guess that the human-shaped fog and the murderous heart within it could make Yueru as strong as Qi Hongshin. As for whether the fog had a consciousness or not, and whether it would bring danger to Yueru in the future, it was no longer a problem for him to consider at the moment. The most important thing now was to protect Yueru's life. The human-shaped fog and the murderous heart entered Yueru's body together. Xiaoling Yu checked Yueru again. As expected, he did not find where the human-shaped fog was hiding. He only saw the murderous heart enter Yueru's heart. When there were no other abnormalities, Xiaoling Yu released Yueru's sealed consciousness and memories. He then shook her consciousness and woke her up from her coma. Fortunately, after the murderous heart and the human-shaped fog entered Yueru's body, the murderous aura in her body became very stable and did not corrode her soul. The released consciousness and memories were not affected. After a cup of tea's time, Yueru opened her eyes. She saw Xiaoling Yu and looked around. She said slowly, "He was killed by you, right?" Xiaoling Yu nodded. Yueru chuckled bitterly as she slowly straightened her back and said, "He's my husband. Can't you just let him go?" "Brother Xiao," Xiaoling Yu said, "if I let him go, he won't let me go. In that kind of situation, either you die or I die. Do you think I had a choice?" Yueru said with a sorrowful expression, "I didn't expect that I would become a widow so soon after getting married. I was most worried that you would fight him to the death, but you still came to this point." Chapter 590. After experiencing this calamity, Yueru's heart was as dead as ashes. Not long after she woke up, she left without a word. Xiaoling Yu didn't try to persuade Yueru. He didn't know how either. Even if Yueru had fallen in love with him in the past, he had just killed Yueru's husband. If not for the fact that Yueru and Qi Hongshuan's relationship wasn't deep, and that Yueru and Qi Hongshian were only husband and wife in name, Yueru might have viewed Xiaoling Yu as an enemy who had killed her husband. Looking at Yueru's lonely and frail body, Xiaoling Yu was more or less worried for her. She was a young lady who had just walked out of a mountain village. First, she had been heartlessly rejected by her sweetheart. Then, she had lost her husband not long after she got married. Now, she even had a murderous heart. How could her frail body withstand such continuous torment? Since she had already merged with a murderous heart, Yuru had no other choice in her future cultivation. She could only grit her teeth and continue on like Qi Hongxian. However, she had one more advantage over Qi Hongxian, and that was her identity as a medicine master. She could concoct medicine for herself. Yu Eru's figure had already disappeared from sight. Xiaoling Yu could only silently wish her well and hope that she could live well and smoothly in the future. After Yuru left, Xiaoling Yu began to sit cross-legged and meditate. He adjusted his condition and recovered his strength. Qi Hongshuan's death would definitely anger the Qi family. If Xiaoling Yu returned to Duhu City, he would definitely be attacked by the Qi family's divine king. The housekeeper would probably not deal with this matter for him anymore. The city lord's manor would most likely turn a blind eye to the Qi family's actions. Since there was nothing in Duhu City that Xiaoling Yu was reluctant to leave, he decided to go to another city after recuperating. Duhu City was indeed not peaceful now. The sloppy divine king of the Qi family had not caught up with Xiaoling Yu. After he returned to the Qi family, he informed the Qi family head that the housekeeper was to blame. He also informed the city lord manor of the fact that Xiaoling Yu had brazenly killed Qi Hongxian in the Qi family. According to the rules of Duhu City, apart from the city's arena, private fights were not allowed anywhere else. Xiaoling Yu's actions naturally violated the city's rules. The city lord's manor didn't disrespect for the Qi family this time, and even issued a warrant for Xiaoling Yu. When the housekeeper heard that Xiaoling Yu had killed Qi Hongxian, he was rather surprised. However, he soon raised his doubts. First, how could he be sure that Xiaoling Yu hadn't been provoked by Qi Hongxian? Second, since Xiaoling Yu had attacked in the Qi family's courtyard, how could he have escaped? Third, Qi Hongxian had purposely invited Xiaoling Yu to a banquet, and Xiaoling Yu had gone alone. If Qi Hongxian hadn't attacked, how could Xiaoling Yu have dared to act rashly in the Qi family's courtyard? Most importantly, Xiaoling Yu was only a member of the housekeeper's wildfire. He wasn't really a member of the housekeeper's manor. His actions weren't ordered by the housekeeper. It was just a personal grudge between him and the Qi family. The Qi family was making trouble for the housekeeper. The Qi family couldn't refute the housekeeper's response. However, it was an indisputable fact that Qi Hongxian had been killed by Xiaoling Yu. It was also a fact that Xiaoling Yu was a high-ranking member of the housekeeper's wildfire. It was impossible for the housekeeper to clear his name with just a few words. Even the city lord's manor, who had always been biased towards the housekeeper, was pressuring the housekeeper to take responsibility and assist the city lord's manor and the Qi family in apprehending Xiaoling Yu. The housekeeper had no choice but to apologize verbally to the Qi family and promise to cooperate fully in apprehending Xiaoling Yu. The housekeeper felt that Xiaoling Yu couldn't stay in Duhu City any longer after committing such a serious crime. He must have escaped far away and wouldn't give the Qi family a chance to take revenge. Therefore, the housekeeper didn't need to be tough on Xiaoling Yu. However, the Qi family requested the housekeeper to hand over Xiong Meng and the other 3 people who had been living in the same room as Xiaoling Yu. They claimed that these 4 people were Xiaoling Yu's accomplices. The city lord's manor agreed to the Qi family's request. The city lord's manor also sent someone to the housekeeper. The person spoke to the head of the housekeeper in a secret room. The Qi family doesn't expect to be able to kill Xiaoling Yu for revenge, but now that things have gotten out of hand, the Qi family needs to find a way out and a place to vent their anger. It's just 4 heavenly god-level mercenaries. I believe the housekeeper knows what to do. Since the city lord's manor had said so, the housekeeper naturally had to compromise. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too close to Xiaoling Yu. He left after committing a crime, leaving you to take the blame for him. The housekeeper then sent a message to Guan Yiyuan, asking him to cooperate with Guan Yichuan and Guan Yishan to apprehend Xiong Meng and the other 3 and escort them to the city lord's manor. However, the housekeeper didn't know that Guan Yiyuan and his 2 brothers had been brainwashed by Miss Jing. Since Xiong Meng and the other 3 were very close to Miss Jing, the 3 brothers naturally wouldn't apprehend them. However, The housekeeper was very careful. Because there had been too many accidents recently, he actually sent Guan Yiwei to supervise the situation. Xiongming and the other three had just received the news. Before they could escape, Guan Yiwei had already arrived at the entrance of Wildfire's campsite. After all, it was right next to the housekeeper's manor. Guan Yiwei's strength was outstanding, and the campsite was too close to the housekeeper's manor. If the three brothers resisted, a large group of chief family experts would quickly rush over and none of them would be able to escape. The three brothers didn't dare act rashly, so they could only escort Xiongming and the other three to the city lord's manor under Guan Yiwei's supervision. However, before they left, Guan Yuan said to Guan Yichuan, "Stay behind and watch over the campsite. It's an eventful time right now, so one of us has to stay behind." Guan Yiwei felt that Guan Yuan's arrangement was very reasonable, so he naturally didn't suspect anything. When Guan Yichuan saw that Guan Yiwei and the others had left, he took out a communication bead and sent a message to Xiao Yu, explaining what had happened in the city. Although Xiao Yu might not receive the message, Guan Yichuan didn't have a good idea of what to do. Xiao Yu had finished recuperating and was about to leave Duhu City, but before she could leave, she received Guan Yichuan's message. She couldn't help but frown. After a moment of consideration, Xiao Yu abruptly got up and resolutely headed for Duhu City. Although Duhu City might have been surrounded by the city lord's manor and the chief family, Xiao Yu couldn't just stand by and watch Xiongming and the others suffer for her sake. Xiao Yu didn't enter the city through the city gates because he would be exposed as soon as he entered. Then, he would attract a large group of chief family experts and city guards. He circled to the foot of a secluded city wall, then flew up high. Not only did he climb over the city wall, but he also flew over the city wall's restriction array and finally landed in a desolate forest in the city. Xiao Yu had stayed in Duhu City for a long time. The reason he had climbed over here was because he knew that this was a desolate forest. After leaving the desolate forest, Xiao Yu cast a small disguise spell and adjusted his appearance slightly. Then, he quickly walked towards the city lord's manor. As long as he could intercept Guan Yiwei and the others first, Xiao Yu would only need to fight with Guan Yiwei for a moment before Guan Yuan and Guan Yishan would be able to move Xiongming and the others away. After all, Guan Yiwei wouldn't suspect Guan Yuan and Guan Yishan. Xiao Yu knew the route from the Flowing Fire mercenary band's campsite to the city lord's residence. In order to catch up, he traveled at an extremely fast speed, sometimes even leaping high into the air and flying over the heads of the crowd. Although this was against the city rules and had attracted quite a number of city guards, how could those city guards be able to stop or catch up to him? Fortunately, Xiao Yu wasn't too far away from Duhu City, so he didn't waste too much time on the road. Fortunately, the streets of Duhu City were very crowded, so Guan Yiwei and the others couldn't walk too fast. This allowed Xiao Yu to catch up with them before Guan Yiwei and the others reached the city lord's manor. After catching up, Xiao Yu didn't immediately make a move. Instead, he silently followed for a while. After all, there was still a long way to go before they reached the city lord's manor. He didn't need to be too anxious. He had enough time to find the best opportunity to make a move. When Guan Yiwei and the others reached a very crowded intersection, Xiao Yu knew that it was time to make a move. However, before he could make a move, Guan Yiwei and the others stopped by the side of the road because they were stopped by several Divine Monarch cultivators. These Divine Monarch cultivators looked familiar to Xiao Yu. After thinking carefully, he realized that they were from the Qi clan. One of them was even a steward sent by the city lord's manor. "You can send them here. The city lord has ordered that these 4 people don't need to be sent to the city lord's manor. Just hand them over to the Qi clan," the steward said. Guan Yiwei naturally didn't have any objections. The sooner Xiongming and the others were handed over, the sooner he and the steward could get rid of this matter. Since the steward had already decided to hand over Xiongming and the others, he naturally didn't care who they were handed over to. Even if they handed them over to the city lord's manor first, Xiongming and the others would still be sent to the Qi clan in the end. As a result, Xiao Yu didn't make a move. If he did, he would definitely be held back by the powerful Guan Wei. Guan Yuan and Guan Yishan wouldn't be able to move Xiong Meng and the others in front of the Qi clan's experts. However, Xiao Yu then sent a message to Guan Yuan. At this time, the handover was complete. Guan Wei was preparing to leave with Guan Yuan and Guan Yishan. Guan Yuan took out his own communication pearl and sank his consciousness into it. He frowned and said, "The Patriarch has ordered Guan Yishan and I to escort these 4 people to the Qi clan as a show of sincerity." Guan Wei didn't suspect anything. After all, the handover was complete. Anything that happened on the way would have nothing to do with him. Therefore, he nodded and left. Accompanied by Guan Yuan and Guan Yishan, the Qi clan's divine monarchs escorted Xiong Meng and the others to the Qi clan's courtyard. Xiao Yu silently followed behind and took out his communication pearl to send a message to Guan Yichuan. After receiving Xiao Yu's message, Guan Yichuan reorganized the wildfire mercenaries in the camp. He then ordered them to leave the camp and leave the city as quickly as possible. Chapter 591. In order to not give Guan Wei a chance to rush over, Xiao Yu patiently followed the Qi family through more than 10 streets. After nearly an hour, he suddenly attacked at a crossroad. Xiao Yu's sudden attack immediately caused chaos among the crowd at the crossroad. The cultivators in the crowd did not know where the sudden change came from, so they could only run and shout in all directions. They did not have a unified direction and naturally collided with each other. Xiao Yu leaped into the air, passed through the crowd, and directly attacked the Qi family. The Qi family's divine monarchs were also frightened. They knew that Qi Hongxian was very strong, and they also knew that the enemy they were facing now had killed Qi Hongxian in the Qi family's courtyard not long ago. Therefore, they subconsciously thought that Xiao Yu was a divine king expert. The terrified Qi family's divine monarchs quickly grouped together to defend against the enemy. Their attention was completely diverted from Xiong Meng and the other 3 to their own safety. Xiao Yu's sudden attack was not to kill the Qi family's divine monarchs, but to create chaos and divert the attention of the Qi family's experts. He had already achieved his goal when he suddenly attacked. After landing, Xiao Yu launched an attack at the Qi family's divine monarchs. However, the divine monarchs grouped together and were barely able to block him. The city guards reacted quickly. In a few breaths' time, they came from all directions and sealed off the crossroad. Guan Yuan and Guan Yishan brought Xiong Meng and the others to the front of the encirclement of the city guards. They said to a city guard who seemed to be the leader, "These 4 are important criminals. With the chaos here, we have to evacuate them first to prevent them from falling into the hands of the strong." The city guard leader recognized Guan Yuan and Guan Yishan. He also knew about the recent incident between the Guan family and the Qi family. Therefore, he decisively let them go. If something happened to these 4 important criminals in their encirclement, he would not be able to bear the responsibility of the city lord and the Qi family. In order to buy time for Guan Yuan and company to escape the city, as well as buy time for the wildfire mercenaries to leave the city, Xiao Yu couldn't leave now. He still had to deal with the Qi family's divine lord and the city guards for a while. However, Xiao Yu knew that it wouldn't take long for the Qi family's divine king stage experts to arrive. Even the divine king stage experts from the city lord's mansion would arrive soon. He couldn't stay in the city lord's mansion for too long. Therefore, he decided to fly towards the city lord's mansion. Just as Xiao Yu had expected, he had just fought with the Qi clan's expert for less than 10 minutes when 2 figures flew over from the city. Xiao Yu did not hesitate at all. She immediately entered the tubular saint artifact that she had prepared beforehand and drove it out of the city. This time, Xiao Yu did not drive the tubular saint artifact to its maximum speed. Instead, he maintained the same speed as the 2 divine kings. This way, they wouldn't catch up to him, but they wouldn't lose him either. This was to attract their attention. In the blink of an eye, the tubular saint artifact flew out of the city with Xiao Yu. The two god kings chased after them relentlessly. Now that the divine kings had been dispatched and the troublemakers had escaped the city gradually regained its peace. Perhaps they knew that the city lord's mansion had no use against Xiaoling Yu, so they did not seal off the streets or the city gates. Whether it was the Guan family, the Qi family, or the city lord's mansion, they were more concerned about whether the two divine kings could capture Xiaoling Yu. Naturally, they ignored Xiongmeng and the other three. The reason why the Qi family wanted Xiongmeng and the other three was to use them to threaten Xiaoling Yu. Now that Xiaoling Yu had appeared, there was no need for them to care about Xiongmeng and the other three. After dragging the two divine kings along for 2 days, Xiaoling Yu finally received news that Wildfire, Xiongmeng, and the other three had already left the city. Xiaoling Yu sent a message to Guan Yiyuan and the others, telling them to split up and hide in the floating Cataclysm Mountains. If everyone gathered together, they would be easily found. The Guan family would definitely be on high alert. After all, Wildfire had left the city en masse and did not inform the Guan family of the situation. If not for the fact that Wildfire's 3 leaders were from the Guan family, Wildfire would not have been able to leave the city so easily under the Guan family's watch. Since the Guan family had agreed to hand over Xiongmeng and the others, there was no need for Xiaoling Yu to consider anything for the Guan family. When he joined the Guan family, it was for Wildfire. Even if he decided to leave the city, Xiaoling Yu still had to complete his objective first. Now that his mission was complete, Xiaoling Yu immediately sped up with the tubular saint artifact. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he had left the two divine kings in the dust. Xiaoling Yu found a random place to hide in the floating Cataclysm Mountains, then sent a message to Guan Yiyuan and the others. Before long, Guan Yiyuan, his brothers, Zhou Jin, and Xiongmeng arrived at Xiaoling Yu's hiding place. Zhou Jin was currently under the control of Guan Yiyuan and the others. Zhou Jin naturally had no idea what was going on. Miss Jing was not in front of him, and Xiaoling Yu did not have any secret techniques to control people. He felt that Zhou Jin was a good person, so he told him some things that were not too confidential. Then, he let Zhou Jin choose whether to stay or leave. After some hesitation, Zhou Jin chose to stay in the Wildfire. He also took the initiative to swear that he would not betray Xiaoling Yu. Zhou Jin chose to stay because he was worried that he would be killed if he chose to leave. Although he was a straightforward person would not give up his life in vain. After everyone gathered together to discuss for a while, Xiaoling Yu told them to disperse and not cause any trouble. However, a few days later, Guan Yiyuan sent a message saying that the Guan family, the Qi family, and the City Lord Manor had sent out a large number of experts to search the floating Cataclysm Mountains. After all, there were thousands of people in the Wildfire. It was impossible for everyone to hide well. It was inevitable that some people would be found. If they did not take the next step, the cultivators in the Wildfire would not be able to hide for long. They would be found one by one. Just as Xiaoling Yu was thinking of a countermeasure, he suddenly sensed movement outside the cave he was hiding in. He quietly went out of the cave to check the situation. At this moment, there was a sizable group of people moving from the depths of the floating Cataclysm Mountains. Xiaoling Yu carefully looked at their armor and realized that it was the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop. However, the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop that was originally neat and orderly was now in a sorry state. Not only were they covered in dirt, but their armor was also in tatters. Many of the mercenaries had obvious wounds on their bodies. It was obvious that the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop had just suffered heavy losses. They had probably encountered an accident during their mission. Xiaoling Yu remembered that the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop had God King experts. Since there was a God King, how did they end up in such a sorry state? Although he was curious, Xiaoling Yu did not go forward to ask. For safety's sake, he even stayed far away. Looking at the defeated Tianqi Iron Armor Troop, Xiaoling Yu suddenly had an idea. He then flew above the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop. A moment later, a cultivator who was also wearing a broken iron armor flew over. This person looked like an old man in his 50s. His face was pale, and there were wounds on his body. However, his aura was still quite stable. Xiaoling Yu could sense that this person was very strong. He could not see through this person's strength, but it was enough to know that this person was a God King expert. Who are you? The person asked with narrowed eyes. I am Xiaoling Yu. I presume that you are the leader of the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop? Xiaoling Yu asked politely. That's right. The person nodded, but his expression was very cautious. I have something to discuss with you, leader. I wonder if you are willing to listen to me? Xiaoling Yu continued. The person frowned slightly. He pondered for a while and said, Please follow me. Xiaoling Yu followed the person and flew away from the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop. They stopped at the top of a small mountain. The leader said, What do you want to say? Let's talk here. Xiaoling Yu did not beat around the bush. He asked directly, Do you know about the Guan family's wildfire? The leader nodded and said, I do. Xiaoling Yu continued. If I were to merge wildfire into your Tianqi Iron Armor Troop, would you dare to accept? The leader was a little surprised and doubtful. He asked, You can make the decision? Xiaoling Yu nodded and said with certainty, I can make the decision. Now that wildfire has left the Guan family, the other leaders also obey me. The leader was still very doubtful. I remember that wildfire has 3 Guan families god monarch experts. They also obey you and have broken off their relationship with the Guan family? That's right. Xiaoling Yu replied. Haha, don't try to fool this old man. Do you think that I will believe such nonsense? The leader laughed and shook his head. Xiaoling Yu said, There are many things to do here. You can send someone back to Duhu City to inquire about it. After that, I will summon the managers of wildfire. I believe that you will not have any more doubts. As long as you can prove that you are not lying, I will dare to accept wildfire, the leader said straightforwardly. In the next few days, Xiaoling Yu summoned Guan Yiyuan and the others to meet with the leader of the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop. The Tianqi Iron Armor Troop had its own camp in the city. There would definitely be people in the camp who could pass on useful information to the leader. In order to make the leader believe him, Xiaoling Yu even told him about how Guan Yiyuan and his brothers had been brainwashed and had their memories reconstructed. To the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop, which had just suffered heavy losses, it would naturally be a great thing if they could absorb wildfire. However, this would definitely offend the Guan family and possibly the Qi family. Chapter 592. When it came to the details of the merger, Xiaoling Yu was shocked to find out that the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment wasn't an independent mercenary group. Instead, it belonged to a large mercenary group called the Tianqi Mercenary Group. The Tianqi Mercenary Group wasn't located in Duhu City, but in a high-class city that was more than 10 times larger than Duhu City. The Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment was only a branch of the Tianqi Mercenary Group. In terms of the overall strength of the Tianqi Mercenary Group, even if all the forces in Duhu City were combined, they would still be far inferior. With such a powerful background, it was no wonder that the regiment commander dared to accept wildfire. No matter how angry the butler and the Qi clan were, they wouldn't dare to cause trouble for the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment. Although the sloppy divine king of the Qi family was sometimes crazy, such as the time when he caused the Tianqi Iron Armor team to fall into the river, that was just a joke. If there really was a big conflict, the divine king of the Qi family would have to worry a lot. Actually, the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment is already preparing to leave Duhu City. It's hard for us to grow here, and it's also hard for us to recruit divine king experts. Moreover, we haven't achieved much in the past few years, so the higher-ups have already informed us to return to the headquarters. Since you can't stay in Duhu City anymore, we can all move to a high-class city to seek greater development, the regiment commander explained. That's great. Xiaoling Yu nodded. The reason why Xiaoling Yu wanted to merge wildfire into the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment was to find a home for wildfire and also to tide over this crisis. He didn't have any plans for the development of the mercenary group. If he could join the Tianqi mercenary group, wildfire's cultivators would be very happy. After the merger was settled, Xiaoling Yu asked Guan Yiyuan and the others to gather the scattered wildfire's mercenaries and regroup with the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment. The Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment was already preparing to leave, but they hadn't decided when to leave. With the addition of Wildfire, the regiment commander made up his mind to leave in the next few days. He had already informed the people left in the camp to regroup with the main group. Many of the Wildfire cultivators were captured by the steward, the chief family, and the city guards as they approached the Tianchi Iron Armor Squad. However, most of them still managed to gather. The Tianchi Iron Armor Regiment didn't enter Duhu City. They camped at the edge of the floating Su mountain range, resting and waiting for the people in the city to arrive. They were ready to leave at any time. During this time, the butler, the chief family, and the city lord's manor all sent people over to negotiate. However, the confident and powerful regiment commander did not give them any face at all. They could only leave resentfully. These large families and forces naturally knew the background of the Tianchi Iron Armor Team. They didn't dare to use forceful means to deal with the Tianchi Iron Armor Team. On the surface, Xiao Lingyu wasn't part of the Tianchi Iron Armor clan. After all, he had committed a serious crime. The Tianchi Iron Armor clan couldn't openly protect him. Of course, he didn't need anyone's protection. He just needed to hide from the God Kings in Duhu City. Even though the chief family and the butler invited the city lord of Duhu City, the regiment commander of the Tianchi Iron Armor clan only received them politely. He wouldn't hand Wildfire over to the butler. Previously, the Tianchi Iron Armor Regiment had suffered heavy losses during the mission, and this commander was still worried about how to explain it to the headquarters. The addition of the Flowing Fire mercenary group directly solved this problem of his. Under such circumstances, he definitely wouldn't back down. The butler could only accept it helplessly. As for the chief family, they were looking for Xiao Lingyu. Since Xiao Lingyu wasn't part of the Tianchi Iron Armor clan, they naturally had no reason to cause trouble in the Tianchi Iron Armor clan. They didn't dare to cause trouble either. In less than 3 days, the Tianchi Iron Armor clan officially set off. They took out 3 large airships. Each airship carried more than 3,000 people. The 3 airships were of the quality of high-grade divine artifacts. They slowly rose into the air and quickly disappeared into the horizon. Xiao Lingyu was also on one of the airships. He looked relaxed and leisurely. There was nothing in Duhu City that he was reluctant to leave. He didn't have any regrets either. The only thing that he was slightly worried about was Yueru. However, Yueru was no longer the little medicine master who hadn't even reached the heavenly god stage. Her heart had already turned to ashes. She definitely wouldn't cause any trouble. She wouldn't even go to places with a lot of people. With her current strength, she should have no problem protecting herself. The airship was actually heading in the same direction as the river outside Duhu City. The destination of this flight was the high-level city of Tian City. Tian City was at the downstream of the river. It wasn't too far from Duhu City. With the speed of this high-grade divine artifact, it would take at most 5 years to reach Tian City. During this 5 years journey, they wouldn't have to cross many dangerous places. Ordinary robbers and bandits wouldn't dare to stop such a large airship. The enormous floating Katkin mountain range had a slender sharp angle in the direction of the airship. The river also passed through that sharp angle. It was only when they passed through that sharp angle that they might encounter danger. Although the days of travel were leisurely, Xiao Lingyu didn't practice the inverse mystic realm in front of so many people. Instead, he closed his eyes and meditated on his cultivation technique. After flying at full speed for 2 years, the airship arrived at the sharp angle of the floating Katkin mountain range. Under the reminder of the Tianchi Iron Armor clan's commander, everyone was on high alert and prepared to enter the battle at any time. The sharp angle of the floating Katkin mountain range was full of lofty mountains and precipitous cliffs on both sides of the river. After passing through this slender floating Katkin mountain range, they would arrive at Tian City after flying for another 2 years. This mountain range was the only dangerous place for the Tianchi Iron Armor clan to return to their headquarters. However, under normal circumstances, even if they were extremely unlucky, they would only encounter a God King stage demonic beast that came out from the depths of the floating Katkin mountain range. If this wasn't a safe route, the Tianqi Iron Armor clan wouldn't have passed through it. Even if they were unlucky enough to encounter a God King stage demonic beast, the Tianqi Iron Armor clan would still be able to fend it off. The God King stage demonic beast that they were worried about didn't appear. However, when the three airships entered the center of the sharp angle of the floating Katkin mountain range, a large number of God Monarch stage demonic beasts, along with countless Heaven God and Great God stage demonic beasts, pounced on them. The danger level of this situation was second only to encountering a God King stage demonic beast. This was within the expectations of the Tianqi Iron Armor clan's commander. The three airships continued to move forward in a triangular formation. As a God King stage expert, the commander naturally sat in the front airship and constantly bombarded the front with divine light attacks. The two airships at the back were also equipped with offensive capabilities. They were mainly responsible for attacking the demonic beasts that pounced on them from both sides. The three airships had opened many hatches, and the mercenaries inside the airships were constantly bombarding the demonic beasts. With everyone's tacit cooperation, the three airships didn't slow down. Shaoling Yu observed for a while and found that there weren't many demonic beasts in this group. Moreover, there weren't any God King stage experts among them. Therefore, he unfolded his wings and flew out of the airship. Under the continuous attacks of the three airships and the Tianqi Iron Armor clan's experts, there were demonic beasts that were severely injured. The reason why Shaoling Yu came out was to collect the bodies of these demonic beasts, especially those of the God Monarch stage. As the saying went, the skilled were always bold. Shaoling Yu had an extremely fast, short-distance movement speed, as well as an extremely strong bodily defense. Even if those birds with a cultivation at the late Divine Lord realm attacked him together, he didn't fear them at all. After all, he wasn't too far away from the airship, and the mercenaries in the airship would help him attack those birds that dared to approach. The demonic beast attack lasted less than an hour. Perhaps they felt that the three airships were too powerful, so they chose to retreat in the end. The three airships adjusted slightly and continued to move forward at their original speed. After returning to the airship, Shaoling Yu gave all the demonic beasts he captured to the mercenaries. As for the demonic beasts that were at the God Monarch stage, he put them into Fudi's spiritual beast pouch. Shaoling Yu's strength had improved a lot recently. Naturally, he wouldn't let Fudi's strength fall behind. Fudi's appetite was huge. It could devour all the demonic beasts in one go. However, it fell asleep again soon after waking up. As the airships continued to move forward, they were besieged by demonic beasts a few times. However, they were scared but not in danger. Naturally, Shaoling Yu would also take action every time. He would collect the bodies of the demonic beasts that everyone in the airship had killed or injured. He would directly send away the heavenly deity stage demonic beasts. He would also send away a portion of the divine monarch stage demonic beasts. After all, the Fudi had already fallen asleep and would not be able to eat for a short period of time. As planned, it took the three airships almost 5 years to travel from Hushu City to Tian City. Tian City was also built next to the river. It wasn't far from the floating Katkin mountain range. However, from afar, Tian City looked like an endless mountain range. It gave people a strong sense of shock and oppression from afar. Duhu City wasn't too far away from Tian City. As an intermediate city, Duhu City should belong to Tian City. However, that wasn't the case. Duhu City was under the jurisdiction of another advanced city. It was just at the edge of the jurisdiction. The Tianqi mercenary army mainly developed in Tian City. The reason why they sent the Tianqi armored army to Hushu City was because they wanted to expand their influence in the neighboring region. However, the result wasn't ideal because they couldn't get the support of the higher-ups in the other region. The three airships stopped by the river and were put away by the commander. The 10,000 members of the Tianqi armored army reorganized themselves. They didn't enter the city because the Tianqi mercenary army's headquarters wasn't in the city. Chapter 593. Under the leader's lead, the 10,000 men of the Tianchi Iron Armor Regiment walked slowly to the mountainside along the arched Rainbow Bridge. The headquarters of the Tianchi Mercenary Regiment was at the mountainside of this mountain. At the end of the Rainbow Bridge was a square surrounded by clouds and mist. The square was completely paved with green stone slabs. At this moment, there was a middle-aged cultivator on the square. He came up and said to the leader of the Iron Armor Regiment, "The commander ordered you to rest here. There will be new arrangements for you in 3 days." 3 days? The leader of the Iron Armor Regiment frowned. "This is the commander's order. Do you have any objections?" The person said indifferently, No. The leader of the Iron Armor Regiment waved his hand. "To be honest, the Silver Armor Regiment and the Bronze Armor Regiment have already set off. The fact that the commander gave you 3 days to rest and reorganize instead of asking you to set off immediately is already good enough. Make good use of these 3 days. You may not have many peaceful days in the future." After saying this suspicious sentence, the person turned around and left. The 10,000 men of the Tianchi Iron Armor Regiment entered the square one after another. The Rainbow Bridge also disappeared. After settling the mercenaries of the Iron Armor Regiment, the leader went to the camp to inquire about the situation. When he came back, his expression was a bit gloomy. "Regiment Commander Ding, what's the matter?" Xiao Lingyu was now one of the higher-ups of the Iron Armor Regiment. He was close to Regiment Commander Ding, so he had the opportunity to ask some questions. "Brother Xiao, to tell you the truth, we're in big trouble this time," Regiment Commander Ding said gloomily. "What's wrong?" Xiao Lingyu asked again. "Our mercenary regiment received a large-scale mission and needs to guard the border for a while," Regiment Commander Ding replied. "Guard the border?" Xiao Lingyu was even more surprised. Right now, the night demons are invading Yong, and Yong'an City is recruiting mercenaries in Yong and to resist the invasion, Regiment Commander Ding explained. In the next 4 hours, Regiment Commander Ding told Xiao Lingyu in detail about the night demons and Yong, and Xiao Lingyu gradually understood. The God Realm was vast and boundless, and in this boundless God Realm, it was not ruled by human cultivators. There were also many powerful and numerous races that occupied vast areas. The demon race and the human race gathered together. The two races occupied a narrow region of the God Realm, which was the God Realm in the consciousness of the lower-level cultivators of the God Realm. In fact, the experts of both races knew that the region they occupied was only a small part of the God Realm, and not the entire God Realm. Cultivators from the immortal, devil, and demon realms who have reached the pinnacle of cultivation and ascended all landed in those small mountain villages of the narrow God Realm. Therefore, many lower-level cultivators of both races believe that the God Realm is the narrow God Realm controlled by the two races. The narrow God Realm was divided into several large regions by several large clans of both races. Yong was only one of them, and Tian City was located at the edge of Yong, and the Du city that Xiao Lingyu had stayed in for a period of time belonged to Changle City, which was under the jurisdiction of Changle City. The main city of Yong and Yong'an City was built by the top family Jiang of the narrow God Realm. The family Jiang was also the master of Yong and in name. In reality, the cultivators of Yong and only regarded the family Jiang as a large power that could not be provoked. The only thing that the family Jiang could control was the city lord's mansion of each high-level city in Yong'an. It was the same for the other large regions, which were nominally controlled by a top clan. Controlling a city within a large region would definitely bring inestimable benefits to those large clans. However, at the same time, they also had to bear some obligations and responsibilities. For example, if a major crisis occurred within a large region, the large clan controlling that region would have to send people to resolve it. This time, when the night demons invaded Yong, and it was the family Jiang who led the various forces to resist them. In each large region of the narrow God Realm, there was a very large region close to the territory of other races. Some regions were close to only one race, while some regions were close to multiple races. Every time these foreign races invaded, they would bring great losses to the narrow god realm. And these losses were usually borne by the large clans of the narrow god realm. For countless years, the reason why there were very few internal conflicts between the two races was because the external pressure never stopped and was very strong. There were many races in the broad god realm, and among those foreign races, there were many large clans that were even stronger than the two races. In the true sense, there were too many races in the god realm. Naturally, there would be endless disputes. The humans and demons fighting against the neighboring races was only a small part of those disputes. This time, when the night demons invaded Yong, and the family Jiang was duty-bound. However, with just the strength that the family Jiang possessed, it was not enough to resist the night demons. Even if the night demons were not a large race in the god realm, the family Jiang still had to use the entire region's strength to resist them. In the various cities, other than a small number of city guards who were required for normal defense, most of the other city guards were transferred by the family Jiang. A large region had countless cities, large and small. If these well-trained city guards were to gather together, they would be a very powerful force. All of the larger mercenary groups in the region would also receive employment orders from the family Jiang. Most of the mercenary groups did not dare to refuse. Of course, the remuneration that the family Jiang gave was also very generous. As for the guards and clan experts that the family Jiang nurtured, many of them were naturally sent to the front lines. For countless years, large clans like the family Jiang had painstakingly accumulated their wealth for many years. Usually, they would be wiped out after a large-scale battle between races. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The arched rainbow bridge once again descended from the square at the mountainside to the foot of the mountain. The Tianqi Iron Armor Troop that had just returned to the headquarters for 3 days left the headquarters again. More than 10,000 cultivators from the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop boarded the 3 airships again and flew toward the east of Yong, and Xiao Yu did not have anything more important to do. Since he wanted to broaden his horizons, he also set off with the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop. During the 3 days of rest and reorganization, Commander Ding had already reported to the headquarters. After receiving approval from the higher-ups of the Legion that stayed in the headquarters, Xiao Yu was already the deputy commander of the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop. He had to move with the Tianqi Iron Armor Troop. Moreover, he could not irresponsibly leave the wildfire cultivators here and leave. Duhu City was in the northwest of Yong, and Taiyan City was also in the northwest corner of Yong'an. The night demons were in the north of Yong, and logically speaking, it shouldn't be too far from the northwestern corner to the northern border, but it took the 3 airships more than 300 years to fly this distance, and it was under the condition that they didn't stop at all along the way. There were too many powerhouse teams from Taiyan City to the northern border. The dangers along the way had long been eliminated. The Tianqi Iron Armor Troop set off much later than the other teams from Taiyan City. Naturally, the journey was smoother. During these 300 years, Xiao Yu didn't stay idle. The airship that he was in was very big. He occupied a quiet room and set up layers of restrictions in the quiet room. After that, he constantly let himself fall into the heart devil of the inverse profound realm. The cultivation of the inverse mystic realm was not continuous. If there were any accidents, he could wake up at any time. After 300 years, Xiao Yu reached the peak of the late-stage chaotic mystic enlightening realm as he wished. He was only 1 step away from advancing to the 7th revolution of the 9-revolution chaos technique. However, although Xiao Yu had reached the late-stage chaotic mystic enlightening realm, he had only reached the late-stage chaotic mystic enlightening realm after converting all his god stones into chaotic divine energy. Xiao Yu believed that he could easily defeat a peak late divine monarch like Guan Yiwei with his own strength if he were to disregard his magic treasures and rely solely on his own strength. If he were to rely on his magic treasures, he might even be able to hold his own against a late divine king for a while. After all, as his cultivation improved, so did the strength of the 4 monsters released by the yin-yang mirror. However, Shaolin Yu still could not use his Saint weapons at the border where many powerhouses gathered. Although the quality of Saint weapons could not be easily seen, it would cause a lot of trouble if it was seen. Shaolin Yu knew that there were many Saint weapons in the divine world, but most of them were in the hands of Emperor gods and Saint gods. Moreover, an Emperor god usually only had 1 or 2 Saint weapons. However, Shaolin Yu had 3 Saint weapons, which were stronger than many Emperor gods' magic treasures. Not long after the 3 airships of the Sky Chi Iron Armor Regiment stopped, a God King stage powerhouse in golden armor came forward to greet them. He was a high-ranking member of the Sky Chi Iron Armor Regiment. He was ordered by the commander to lead the Sky Chi Iron Armor Regiment to the mission location. Under the guidance of the golden armored cultivator, the airships changed direction and flew for nearly 3 months before stopping. This swamp is the area that our Iron Armor Regiment needs to defend. You must be careful. Send people to patrol at all times. If you find any enemy, don't act on your own. Send a message first, and then respond according to the situation. On your left is our Silver Armor Regiment, and on your right is the Bronze Armor Regiment. You 3 regiments should rely on each other and support each other, the Golden Armored Cultivator said to Commander Ding. What about our Golden Armor Regiment? Commander Ding asked curiously. Although the Golden Armor Regiment is powerful, they don't have many people. They can't protect a large area. They will be behind your 3 regiments as a mobile force. If you are in trouble, the Golden Armor Regiment will come to help. The Golden Armored Cultivator replied. Are the night demons serious this time, or are they just pretending? Commander Ding asked with concern. This, I can't say for sure. Who knows what the night demons are up to? Anyway, everyone should be careful. Even if the night demons are serious this time, the area that our Sky Chi Iron Armor Regiment is in charge of is not the focus of their attack, the Golden Armored Cultivator said while shaking his head. Commander Ding nodded and did not ask any more questions. Chapter 594. This swamp wasn't small, and it was impossible to determine how wide it was. However, the Tianchi Iron Armor Squad needed to be on guard for more than 10,000 kilometers. 10,000 kilometers didn't seem far, but there were more than 10,000 people in the Tianchi Iron Armor Squad. On average, each person had to be on guard for 1 kilometer. If each person was responsible for 1 kilometer and spread out, their vigilance would be weak and very dangerous. It was impossible for each person to be responsible for 1 kilometer because the night demons rarely moved alone. Commander Ding had fought with night demons before, so he had a good understanding of the night demons. He divided the Tianchi Iron Armor Squad into 100 squadrons, and each squadron was responsible for guarding the area within 50 kilometers. He also suggested that each squadron be divided into 2 groups and take turns patrolling the swamp. Everyone disperse. Remember, if you encounter a large group of night demons, immediately retreat and spread the news. If you encounter a small group of night demons, organize your own people to kill them. After Commander Ding explained the precautions in detail, he waved his hand and told everyone to disperse. Shaolin Yu was also in the squadron, so Xiong Ming and the other 3 were naturally in his squadron. This swamp was more like a swamp with shallow puddles everywhere. However, there were very few aquatic plants, and only a few short trees could be seen here and there. During the day, this swamp was still very normal. Even when the night demons were invading, a few birds would occasionally flap their wings and soar in the swamp, landing from time to time to catch fish and insects for food. However, at night, a misty mist would rise from the swamp, blocking everyone's vision and blurring their divine senses. Night demons were mostly active at night. Under the cover of the night, they could become invisible without using any spells, and they could approach if they were careless. Therefore, the night was the most important time to be on guard. Shaolin Yu also divided the squadron into 2 groups based on this situation. One group of 40 people was responsible for guarding during the day, and the other group of 60 people was responsible for patrolling at night. As the deputy commander of the Tianchi Iron Armor Regiment, Shaolin Yu was in charge of the 30 nearby squadrons, which consisted of 3,000 people. Therefore, he didn't participate in patrolling or guarding. Instead, he flew back and forth in the surrounding 3,000 li. However, if he stopped to rest, he would definitely return to his squad. To Xiao Yu's surprise, after more than 3 months, not a single night demon had been discovered, but Commander Ding had been transferred away. Regiment Commander Ding didn't even send a message to Xiao Yu before he hurriedly left the swamp. However, he left behind a jade slip. There is a lot of information about the night demons in this jade slip, as well as a message for Xiao Yu. Commander Ding explained to Xiao Yu, "The night demons are serious this time. Now that a large-scale conflict has broken out on the main battlefield, all the God King stage cultivators have been transferred to the main battlefield, and so have our Tianqi mercenaries. The Tianqi Golden Armor Regiment, which was originally behind us, has also been transferred away. We can only rely on you to guard this side. After I leave, you should be the strongest in the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment. So please temporarily take over the duties of the regiment commander and supervise the 10,000 people of the Iron Armor Regiment. Take care of this 10,000 Li Quagmire defense line." It was normal for the deputy commander to temporarily take over the duties of the regiment commander. However, Xiao Yu never expected that after more than half a year, they still hadn't seen any night demons cultivators. Instead, a cultivator in golden armor from the Tianqi mercenaries came over and said that Regiment Commander Ding had died on the main battlefield. The higher-ups of the mercenaries appointed Xiao Yu as the regiment commander. It's a critical period now. The army commander doesn't have time to choose a regiment commander for the Iron Armor Regiment. Brother Xiao, you're lucky to be able to become a regiment commander of our Tianqi mercenaries before reaching the God King stage. Brother Xiao, you're one of a kind. Before leaving, the cultivator in golden armor patted Xiao Yu's shoulder and said something irrelevant before leaving. Xiao Yu didn't feel lucky that he had become the regiment commander. Instead, he was a little worried. On the main battlefield, even God King stage cultivators could die. One could imagine how fierce the battle was. He felt lucky that others couldn't see that he had the strength of a God King stage cultivator. Otherwise, he would have to fight the night demons head-on the main battlefield. The peace didn't last long. One night, 2 years after coming here, Xiao Yu received a message from a squadron saying that they had encountered night demons cultivators. Fortunately, there were only 2 night demons cultivators, and they had already been surrounded and killed. However, a few days later, the squadron of the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment continued to report that they had encountered night demons cultivators, and the number of enemies was increasing. Xiao Yu asked everyone to be more alert as he flew into the depths of the swamp. The night demons suddenly came here and sent out more and more scouts. There must be something wrong. Xiao Yu felt that the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment couldn't just sit around and wait. They had to understand the enemy's movements. While flying into the depths of the swamp, he also sent a message to the golden-armored God King of the mercenaries. Xiao Yu was at the peak of the late stage of chaotic, mystic, comprehending stage. His divine sense could cover a wide range. In addition, he was traveling during the day, so his speed was extremely fast. Ordinary night demon scouts couldn't find him at all. After half a month in the swamp, Xiao Yu finally encountered a night demon's cultivator during the day. Just like what was described in the jade slip left behind by Commander Ding, the night demon's cultivators were very ugly. At least, according to the aesthetic standards of human cultivators, the night demon's cultivators weren't very good-looking. Their skin was dark, and they had wide mouths with sharp fangs at the corners of their mouths. They weren't very tall, but they had 4 arms and 2 legs. Their claws were like the claws of birds. Their noses were completely sunken in the basin, revealing only 2 small nostrils. Their ears were similar to pig ears, and their sparse hair couldn't hide the single horn on their heads. The night demon's cultivators were black all over, and they emitted a black mist. If it was at night, the mist would rise from the swamp. If one wasn't careful, it would be very difficult to find their hiding place. When the night demon saw Shaoling Yu, he was first stunned, then he let out an ear-piercing shriek. However, he was only at the heavenly god stage. Just as he let out a shriek, Shaoling Yu shot out a beam of divine light that pierced through his body. Shaoling Yu casually burned the night demon's corpse with the true flame of primal chaos. He frowned and muttered, "This night demon dares to come out in broad daylight? He's too bold." However, as he continued to travel deeper into the swamp, Shaoling Yu kept running into night demon's cultivators in broad daylight over the next few days. This made him even more suspicious. After all, Shaoling Yu was an expert comparable to a divine king. Not only could ordinary night demons not escape from his divine sense, but they also couldn't escape in front of him. It was impossible for them to harm him. He braced himself and continued on. After a few days, Shaoling Yu returned the way he came, and he was very fast. This was because there was a divine king night demon chasing after him with many monarch god stage night demons. No wonder I can see night demons in broad daylight. They have a large army gathered here. It seems like they're preparing to launch an attack from here. Shaoling Yu muttered as he flew at full speed. Just a few days ago, when he was flying deeper into the swamp, he saw an army of night demons. At that time, he turned around and ran. Unfortunately, he was still discovered by them. Shaoling Yu didn't see the exact number of night demons. He only saw a huge black mass. The night demons were like a black sea. On the way back, he naturally had to convey this information to the higher-ups of the mercenaries. He also informed the 100 squadrons of the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment to quickly evacuate from the swamp. The speed of the godly King Stage Night Demon clan was extremely fast, but Shaoling Yu's speed wasn't slow either. At least, the godly King Stage Night Demon clan couldn't catch up with him after using the speed wings. Seeing that he couldn't catch up with Shaoling Yu, the divine King Night Demon was afraid of being led into an ambush. Therefore, he gave chase for a while and retreated. However, when Shaoling Yu got out of the swamp, he realized that the cultivators of the Tianqi Iron Armor Squad hadn't retreated. After asking around, he found out that the higher-ups of the mercenaries had given the order for the Tianqi Iron Armor Squad to stay here and not retreat. Shaoling Yu immediately sent a message to ask, but the higher-ups of the mercenaries didn't give a reasonable explanation. They only said that it was an order from Family Jiang. Are the Yangon Realm's army also rushing over here? Shaoling Yu asked through the transmission. Don't worry, there will definitely be reinforcements. Since the Night Demon army has been discovered, Family Jiang will definitely dispatch them. He won't let a mere 10,000 people of our Iron Armor Regiment resist the invasion of the Night Demon army. The golden-armored cultivator, whose whereabouts were unknown, replied. What made Shaoling Yu angry was that after waiting for nearly 10 days, there were indeed reinforcements. However, they were only small mercenary groups with less than 1,000 people. Although they barely managed to gather 300,000 people near the swamp, compared to the huge Night Demon army, it was too little. Most importantly, there wasn't a single divine king expert among the 300,000 people. With the strength of such a mixed army, the Night Demon army only needed one legion to charge together to break through the defensive line. Shaoling Yu sent another message to the higher-ups of the mercenaries. The reply he received was that there were more reinforcements on the way. Shaoling Yu and the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment were told to stay put. The Night Demon army didn't give them much time to prepare. Their army was less than a day's journey away from the weak defensive line, but there were less than 500,000 people here. Shaoling Yu didn't have the patience to wait any longer. He directly ordered everyone in the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment to retreat immediately. He had seen the size of the Night Demon army that was about to arrive. With their current strength, it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Chapter 595. I won't let my subordinates die for nothing, and I won't let them do it either, Shaoling Yu replied decisively. This is an order from the higher-ups of the mercenaries, as well as Family Jiang's orders, the the golden-armored cultivator said solemnly. "I can only say that I can't comply." Xiao Yu ended the transmission and ordered the 10,000 men of the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment to continue retreating away from the swamp. Soon, Xiao Yu understood something. No wonder it was so easy for him to become the regiment commander. The higher-ups of the mercenaries probably knew that there would be danger here and purposely gave him the position so that he could stay here and wait for his death. Fortunately, Xiao Yu had gone deep into the swamp to check the situation. Otherwise, he might really have stayed here to fight against the night demons. If Xiao Yu had stayed, he might not have been in too much danger. After all, not only did he have the strength of a divine king, but he also had 3 sacred artifacts to protect his life. However, the mercenaries of the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment would have been sacrificed for nothing. Xiao Yu could also guess that family Jiang and the higher-ups of the mercenaries had made this arrangement for a reason or a plan. However, he didn't care about the overall situation, nor did he care about what the higher-ups of the family Jiang or the higher-ups of the mercenaries thought. He had to think about his own safety and the lives of these 10,000 men. At the very least, he was the one who brought the people from the wildfire out. He couldn't let them die here so quickly. However, Xiao Yu wasn't kind enough to warn the other cultivators. He only retreated with the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment. When others asked about it, he only said that it was a normal order from the higher-ups. The several 100,000 cultivators stationed at the swamp probably didn't know that they were about to face a huge army of night demons. Regiment Commander Xiao, I represent the higher-ups of the mercenaries to remove you from your position as the regiment commander. The higher-ups have already decided to appoint Suo Lei as the regiment commander. You don't have the right to mobilize the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment now. This matter will be reported to Family Jiang. After the battle is over, Family Jiang will settle the score with you. The golden-armored cultivator said, "Don't scare me. I won't fall for it," Xiao Yu replied calmly. 10 breaths later, the mid-stage divine monarch called Suo Lei found Xiao Yu and said, "Have you conveyed the message from above?" "Yes, I know. You're the leader now." Xiao Yu nodded. "Then I'm going to have our Iron Armor Regiment turn back now. Do you have any objections?" Suo Lei asked in a seemingly friendly manner. "I'm no longer a member of the Tianqi Iron Armor clan. You don't have to consider my opinion. Do whatever you want." Xiao Yu waved her hand in response. Then, she continued, "However, I must take away the people from Wildfire." Suo Lei said, "The Wildfire mercenary group no longer exists. All that's left is the Tianqi Iron Armor clan. The original members of the Wildfire mercenary group are now members of our Tianqi Iron Armor clan. You have no right to take them away." Xiao Yu sneered. "It's not up to you to decide whether I have the right or not." Then, Xiao Yu ignored Suo Lei. He turned around and shouted, "Brothers of Wildfire, if you're willing to continue retreating with me, follow me. If you want to stay and fight against the Night Demon Army, you can go back with Commander So." Hearing Xiao Yu shout, everyone from the Flowing Fire mercenary band immediately stepped forward. Almost half of the cultivators from the Tianqi Iron Armor Regiment also stepped forward. "You're rebelling. Sooner or later, there will be consequences," Suo Lei scolded. Xiao Yu didn't argue with Suo Lei. In his opinion, Suo Lei was already a dead man. He took the people behind him and quickly left. After all, Suo Lei was only a mid-stage divine monarch. He didn't dare to force Xiao Yu to stay. He could only watch as Xiao Yu took away most of the Iron Armor mercenaries and left. On the road away from the swamp, Xiao Yu saw a few small groups of cultivators heading towards them. These groups were all ordered to defend the swamp. They didn't know that the place they were going to defend would be attacked by the Night Demon Army. Xiao Yu had no obligation to tell them. However, there was a group that stopped Xiao Yu's group and asked them why they had left. Xiao Yu told them the truth, saying that the Night Demon Army had invaded, so they had retreated. In the end, they were ridiculed, saying that they were cowards who were afraid of death, and that they had retreated before fighting. From then on, Xiao Yu didn't say anything. Less than 10 days after Xiao Yu's group retreated, the Night Demon Army launched a fierce attack on the Yong and its defensive line in the swamp. Just as Xiao Yu expected, The Yong and troops stationed there were too weak. The Night Demon army only used one charge to break through. More than 90% of the Yong and cultivators stationed there were killed mercilessly. Only a small number of cultivators were lucky enough to escape. The Night Demon army took advantage of the situation and drove straight in. Although the family Jiang responded actively and mobilized a large number of troops with higher combat standards to resist, they were also quickly defeated. After achieving a breakthrough in the swamp, the other legions of the Night Devil army also gave up on attacking the other positions. Through this breakthrough, they all charged into Yong and gathered together with the previous Night Devil army. For a moment, they were unstoppable. Xiao Lingyu had retreated earlier. 10 days was enough for them to not be caught up by the Night Demon army. He didn't know much about the terrain in the north of Yong, and so he led the wildfire cultivators and retreated back the way they came. What Xiao Lingyu didn't expect was that after traveling at full speed for a year, they were blocked by an army of over 10,000 neatly dressed soldiers. Fortunately, although this army wasn't weak, it was made up of human clan cultivators and not night demons. However, before Xiao Lingyu could negotiate with the army in front of them, another army of over 10,000 appeared from the left, right, and back. For a moment, they were surrounded by 4 armies. Xiao Lingyu was a little puzzled. Since Yong and still had such a powerful army, why didn't they send it to the main battlefield to resist the Night Demon army? Why did they stay here? A person flew over from the front of the group. It was a late-stage Divine Lord expert. He asked Xiao Lingyu a few questions and returned to the group after receiving answers. What Xiao Lingyu didn't expect was that these humans didn't resist the powerful army of the Night Demon army. Instead, they flashed their weapons at them and gradually narrowed the encirclement as if they were going to fight to the death with them. Those who don't obey Family Zhang's laws and retreat without fighting will be beheaded. A God King flew high into the air from the other party's group and called out. Although Xiao Lingyu didn't tell the truth to the late-stage Divine Lord expert, he should have recognized the origin of this group through other means. We don't want to die in vain. What crime have we committed? Xiao Lingyu also flew out from the group and said loudly, "Since you're so powerful, why are you hiding behind the front lines and not fighting?" After flying up, Xiao Lingyu finally saw the appearance of the cultivator. However, after a glance, he was stunned and frowned. The other party looked very young, like a 20-year-old youth in the secular world. He had a dignified appearance and broad eyebrows. He wore a brocade robe and looked like a young master of a big family. Xiao Lingyu had a very deep impression of this person's appearance, because this cultivator had once called him an ant. That's right, the young divine king floating in the air not far from Xiao Lingyu was Jiang Lanyue's cousin, who had humiliated Xiao Lingyu in the ancient god's cave abode in the cultivation world. Even worse, this person had once attacked Xiao Lingyu when he was still immortal. The divine king also found Xiao Lingyu a little familiar, but he didn't think that Xiao Lingyu was the mortal from back then. How could a mortal reach such a level in such a short time? You're so stupid. How could you know the overall situation? We purposely let the night demons break through so that they could charge into our encirclement and kill them all in one fell swoop. Jiang Lanyue's cousin said proudly, as if he was the one who had come up with this plan. Even if you have a long-term plan, how could you ignore the lives of those ordinary cultivators? Do they owe you their lives? Why should you use their lives to pave the way for your plan? Xiao Lingyu replied in the same tone. How can there be no sacrifice if you want to achieve great things? This time, the night demons are invading on a large scale. If we don't use any extreme measures and fight them head-on, even if we can win, we'll only suffer more casualties. What's wrong with sacrificing a small number of people for the overall victory? Jiang Lanyue's cousin said eloquently. No matter who it is, they have the right to choose whether they live or die. Did you consider their opinions before you made your decision? Sacrificing them without their consent is murder. Xiao Lingyu retorted with a cold smile. It's hard to explain to a vulgar person like you. I can only tell you that there is no absolute fairness in the divine realm. If you want power, You have to first see if you have the ability to do so, Jiang Lanyue's cousin said disdainfully. This retreat was my own idea. It has nothing to do with them. If you have anything to do with it, come at me, Xiaolingyu said with narrowed eyes. The reason why he said this was not because Xiaolingyu wanted to take the blame, but because he was confident that no one could stop him. We want to catch the leader and punish him. Since you're willing to accept your punishment, then surrender, Jiang Lanyue's cousin said calmly. Let them go, and I'll accept my punishment, Xiaolingyu said without batting an eyelid. Jiang Lanyue's cousin nodded and said, as long as you stay, they can leave. Xiaolingyu was a little surprised that the other party agreed so readily. However, he still ordered his troops to leave. Jiang Lanyue's cousin opened a gap in the encirclement, and the cultivators who released the wildfire left. However, his gaze was fixed on Xiaolingyu. Chapter 596. Once the wildfire cultivators had all broken free from the encirclement, Xiaolingyu sent a message to them, telling them to scatter and escape as quickly as possible. Since you're willing to accept your punishment, come back with us to receive your punishment. Jiang Lanyue's cousin flew towards Xiaolingyu. His palm was already glowing with divine light, and it seemed like he wanted to seal Xiaolingyu's powers. Xiaolingyu did not resist, allowing the power to sink into his body. Even a God King's divine power would not be able to seal chaotic divine power. However, Xiaolingyu did not immediately use his chaotic divine power to resist. He allowed it to envelop his chaotic divine infant. While Jiang Lanyue's cousin imprisoned Xiaolingyu, he also tried to use his divine sense to spy on Xiaolingyu. However, his divine sense could not penetrate Xiaolingyu's body, which made him frown slightly. Jiang Lanyue's cousin did not think too much about it. After all, Xiaolingyu's powers had already been sealed, so it did not matter if he could not spy on Xiaolingyu's strength. Afterwards, Jiang Lanyue's cousin led 2 divine lord powerhouses and escorted Xiaolingyu away from the group. The encirclement naturally dispersed once more, and they all flew away to hide themselves. The reason Xiaolingyu left with Jiang Lanyue's cousin was only to buy some time for the wildfire cultivators to escape. If he had resisted earlier, perhaps Jiang Lanyue's cousin would have ordered people to hunt down the wildfire cultivators. After traveling for about 2 days, Xiaolingyu felt that the wildfire cultivators should have already dispersed and could no longer be surrounded. As a result, his chaotic divine infant opened its mouth and spat out chaotic true fire, directly shattering the divine power that sealed the chaotic divine infant. He immediately returned to normal. Jiang Lanyue's cousin immediately sensed that his divine power had been broken. He immediately stopped and scolded Xiaolingyu. What are you trying to do? I don't want to do anything. I just suddenly changed my mind and wanted to find a place to be alone for a while. Xiaolingyu shrugged. You're a sinner now, and you still want peace? What a joke. Jiang Lanyue's cousin narrowed his eyes and said, You have no right to convict me, much less punish me, Xiaolingyu replied calmly. You're courting death. Jiang Lanyue's cousin felt that he had been teased and provoked. Unable to suppress his anger, he let out a loud shout and sent a palm strike over. Xiaolingyu, on the other hand, smiled confidently. He calmly raised his palm and fearlessly met Jiang Lanyue's cousin's palm. Bang! When the 2 palms collided, a powerful aura surged out, causing the 2 Sir Gods' expressions to change drastically as they retreated. The 2 of them then retreated separately. Xiaolingyu retreated nearly 300 meters, while Jiang Lanyue's cousin only retreated about 30 meters. In terms of strength, Jiang Lanyue's cousin was obviously stronger. He was probably not an early-stage divine king. You do have the right to be arrogant. However, you want to act so presumptuously in young and with just this little bit of strength? You're courting death. Jiang Lanyue's cousin sneered. Then, a silver spear appeared in his hand. The silver spear was a supreme-grade divine weapon. It had been refined by Jiang Lanyue's cousin for many years. Its power was not to be underestimated. Since the other party had already shown his weapon, Xiaoling Yu did not hold back. She immediately raised the silver moon broken blade in her hand. Jiang Lanyue's cousin first shook the spear a few times. Then he was clearly stunned. He recognized the silver moon broken blade. "Where did you get this broken blade?" Jiang Lanyue's cousin asked in surprise. "It's none of your business," Xiaoling Yu replied. Jiang Lanyue's cousin was very familiar with the silver moon broken blade. He knew that this broken blade must have been made from a broken silver moon. He thought to himself, "No wonder my cousin hasn't used her silver moon broken blade for so many years. It's broken. She probably abandoned it and accidentally found it by this kid." However, Jiang Lanyue's cousin took a closer look at Xiaoling Yu. The more he looked at Xiaoling Yu, the more familiar he felt. He could not help but ask, "Are you that mortal from the cultivation world?" Xiaoling Yu did not deny it. He replied, "If the mortal you're talking about is the one who was ambushed by you with a silver needle, then that's me." Jiang Lanyue's cousin's astonished expression immediately turned into one of shock. He knew that Jiang Lanyue wasn't lying, because no one else knew about that. But what surprised him was that not much time had passed, and that mortal from back then had already cultivated to a level that was no different from his own. This cultivation speed was a bit too fast. Could it be that my cousin gave him some pointers back then? Or did she leave him some benefits? That must be it. Otherwise, he would never have achieved what he has today. The more Jiang Lanyue's cousin thought about it, the more resentful he felt. Even the corners of his mouth twitched. He could not help but regret not killing that mortal back then. Judging from his tone, he must be holding a grudge against me for ambushing him back then. This person's cultivation speed is so fast that he'll definitely become a huge threat to me in the future. It's not too late now. I'll take this opportunity to get rid of him. My cousin treats him so well. I can't let him meet her again, lest he spoils my plans. With these thoughts in mind, Jiang Lanyue's cousin's killing intent gradually soared. The silver spear in his hand trembled even more violently. Xiaoling Yu could sense the killing intent coming from his cousin's body, and could also guess where it came from. However, he was still very relaxed. This was because for many years, he had been holding a grudge against his cousin's needle. He had even kept his silver needle, preparing to return the favor the next time they met. Since he had been scheming for so many years, how could Xiaoling Yu feel the slightest bit of fear now that he had encountered his cousin? All he felt was the thrill of revenge. However, Xiaoling Yu did not lose his rationality. He could also tell that he might not be a match for Jiang Lanyue's cousin. After all, his cousin had been cultivating for much longer than him. Before he started cultivating, his cousin was already an expert in the realm of the gods. "I don't care who you are. How dare you disobey my family Zhang's orders? That's a capital offense." After saying this, Jiang Lanyue's cousin suddenly raised the spear in his hand horizontally and stabbed it towards Xiaoling Yu. His speed was very fast, at least slightly faster than Xiaoling Yu's. In addition, his cultivation level was also slightly higher, so Xiaoling Yu did not dodge. When the spear stabbed towards him, he suddenly leaned his body to the side and used the silver moon broken blade to block in front of him. The silver spear stuck close to the blade of the silver moon broken blade and stabbed towards Xiaoling Yu's chest. At the same time, Jiang Lanyue's cousin was already in front of Xiaoling Yu. His hand, which was not holding a spear, slapped towards Xiaoling Yu's shoulder. Xiaoling Yu quickly moved the silver moon broken blade horizontally towards his opponent's hand. Jiang Lanyue's cousin's fighting skills were not low. He seemed to have predicted that Xiaoling Yu would attack like this. He raised his hand first and grabbed Xiaoling Yu's wrist, which was holding the silver moon broken blade. In an instant, he madly used his power to invade Xiaoling Yu's body. Unfortunately, Xiaoling Yu's physical defense was too high. In addition, his chaos divine power could easily dissolve ordinary divine power. As a result, Jiang Lanyue's cousin's power was not only unable to invade Xiaoling Yu's body, but his hand was also shaken off. Both sides once again retreated a certain distance. Once again, neither side gained the slightest advantage in this exchange. "You've been cultivating for so many years before me, yet you're only SOSO. Back then, you shamelessly called me an ant. I reckon that it won't be long before you're even worse than an ant, Xiaoling Yu mocked. He wanted to provoke his opponent so that his anger and hatred would blind him. This way, his opponent's combat strength would decrease. Originally, Jiang Lanyue's cousin was at the God King stage, so it was difficult for him to be angered by such words. However, Xiaoling Yu's words had hit the nail on the head. Moreover, Xiaoling Yu's identity was special. Although Jiang Lanyue's cousin pretended to be calm on the surface, his heart was already burning with anger. Other than having a sharp tongue, what other skills do you have? Jiang Lanyue's cousin retorted. Then, he shouted, I'll show you the power of the rising dragon spear. As he spoke, the silver spear pierced out once again. However, this time, the spear trembled 3 times in succession and actually shook out 3 long silver dragons. Before the spear could reach him, the 3 silver dragons had already rushed to Xiaoling Yu's side. Although the 3 silver dragons were made of wood, they were not as big as real dragons. However, they had a very powerful aura, and they also had waves of soul-shaking dragon power. The dragon's aura was useless against Xiaoling Yu, because he had the bloodline of a high-level dragon. However, the 3 silver dragons were unusually fierce and domineering. He had no choice but to use the primal chaos primordial fire and turn it into 3 fire dragons to meet them. Although the primal chaos primordial fire was powerful, the 3 silver dragons were extremely fast and powerful. Although the primal chaos primordial fire had weakened most of their power, they still crashed into Xiaoling Yu's body. Xiaoling Yu raised his arms to block, but his body was still sent flying by the 3 dragons. Before he could stabilize his body, the silver spear was already in front of him and was about to pierce his forehead. If he could not block or dodge, Xiaoling Yu's head would definitely shatter on the spot. After all, the silver spear was a supreme-grade divine artifact. Xiaoling Yu, who had just been hit by the 3 silver dragons, was indeed unable to dodge. The silver spears seemed to be thrusting straight at him, but in fact, while they were thrusting, they were constantly shaking and changing their positions according to his dodging. No matter how he dodged, he would inevitably be hit. Jiang Lanyue's cousin must have used a powerful spear technique. Xiaoling Yu's reaction wasn't slow. He quickly raised his 2 arched arms and propped up the silver spear. The silver spear did not hit Xiaoling Yu's vital points, but intense pain came from Xiaoling Yu's arms. The rapid impact of the supreme-grade divine artifact almost broke his high-grade divine artifact arms. Not only was his skin and flesh torn, but even his tendons and bones were broken. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.